Great day, great people out there. I hope all is well with you. It took me some time this morning because I had to fix the Facebook stream, of course, because Facebook moves a little differently. And if you don't, they allow us a little leeway, but it's hard to delete and start all over again because when you're late there. And that's the problem. So I had to fix it, update it, get it out. Couldn't delete the old. Didn't know how to delete it on Facebook. But anyway, we're here, and dang, all that trouble I had to go through. It kind of messed up my thinking process for this morning. Um, what I had to say before we get started with the video. It always happens. Distraction. Mm, 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 mm. Distraction. Let's take a moment. Hopefully, let me check my Facebook. Did I go live on here? Don't tell me you have to. Probably I've been having problems with my Facebook camera, waiting for camera. I have the camera. Oh, God. Is this different? Okay, allow. Okay. Uh, what is going on? Where's my share screen? Let me see. So Facebook is different. Okay. All right. Because it's the video. Dang, you have to do all of that, different things for Facebook versus it's the PAL. Okay. Testing, testing. Hopefully you can hear me. Testing, testing. I think testing, testing. Yeah, there we go. Let's see it. I don't think it really testing, testing. Okay, it works. Okay. Stream software. Okay. Um, live. Oh my God, I can't think. Okay, let's see. That's all I had to do. person is from Facebook, but they can catch it. Okay, we're ready to go live on Facebook. Go live on Facebook. How do I go live? Okay, go live now. Go live on Facebook. Okay, so we're going live on Facebook. We're live on StreamYard now because Facebook has got some different thing going on. And welcome to all my Facebook family out there. Hope will have a great, enriched day. Oh yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad I started talking about that because that got me. What my word of the day, what I want to say today to you guys is talk about our our sight and how our sight is just what we see. What we see is, oh my goodness, what we see is limited to where we're at here on earth and how we see things. The light is what helps us to see, right? Because that light goes into our eye and gives us sight. But don't you know the sight that we have with our two eyes can very well work and be magical as well for us. We see magical things. It's those great visions, the vision that keeps me moving forward, that sometimes I lose sight of in my deepest, darkest hours, the times when I get pulled into my darkness, and my darkness wants to show me a different light, wants to show me heart and tough love, you know, to hard, tough love, to sit down, breathe, and focus and live in the moment. That's how I describe the depression when it comes upon me. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing, but it's good and bad. How about that? At both times, it's something that's weakening and will send me to stop in my tracks. But at the same time, it's the most powerful moments of my life. The most powerful moments of my life, and let us not lose sight that the first eye is always the most important eye to see with, and that's the mind's eye. But the two eyes, while we're here on earth, will allow us to go forward with visions, with aspirations that we get from that mind's eye, and we want to put it forward on earth. It's those visions. And sometimes, like I said, we get stopped in our tracks by being we have to stop, and we have to think about things, and we have to focus, and we have to listen, and we have to hear. But that's what we're in. We're in polarities. We're in polarities, and our body tells us that. The good times, the bad times, death, greatness, sickness, health, the bad life, the good life, the polarities, ups and downs that we go through. That's what the earth is going through, and that's what we go through. And it is really, 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 really a challenge. Everything's a challenge. So that's why I was saying our eyesight, we can utilize it, because the way we see things is magical. We see nothing but the matrix. But we can, I guess what I'm trying to say, we can make the matrix into whatever we vision, whatever we see. And most time we want to see greatness. You want to stay in the great light, the light that's going to help you move forward. Sometimes people don't know that it's going to help them move forward. They don't know that because their nature tells them survival, survival. And they don't know that they have to change that. It's difficult. You have to sit in those moments and know you have to move forward. But majority, it's a lot of people that do that. That they see it comes easy for them. They know they have to um, deal with the polarities, understand the polarities in the world. All right. And see great things, see great visions, you know. I ran into a artist when I was overseas one time, and he traveled the world, and he was a great artist for me, um, because I love the work and the realism, and he drew me a few portraits, and they really show the truth. They really showed the truth. You know, he knew how to draw the truth of reality of what is there. And that was amazing. That's what I was taught, how to draw the real thing. And I loved drawing always the real thing, because being able to see it in front of you and have it on paper, that is the most beautiful thing for me. So let's get on into the video.
One of the rituals that we find in America, you don't find this ritual in America until you find our ancestors, our foremothers, forefathers, our ancestors, our people, when you find them here, then you begin to see the rituals. This particular ritual that you find in ancient Kemet, called the opening of the mouth ceremony. The opening of the mouth ceremony, where you have the priest and you have the initiate here, and you have what's like a snake-like instrument called the adaz, and he's tapping them because he wants him to do what? Open his mouth to do what? The science of what? Breath. Mm-hmm. All right. So it's initiation going to the breath, the breathe. The whole concept is centered around the breath. That's where the word spirit comes from. Spiritus, breath. The other ritual that you see in the Americas, and you don't see this until until you find us here, is what you call here like a baptismal. Because you can see here with the ankhs, the vase jar with the water, etc. You find this here also in America, on this soil here, okay, among the Olmecs, when you find our people. All right, so that's just two of them, all right, that I'm pointing out. Trying to see what else here. And that's pretty much just an overview. Now remember, it's not just these heads here, these terracotta. You had terracottas almost this small that was carved, okay, with African features. The hair was different, of course, and the grave sites of the ruling class. All right, Van Sertima states, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima states that 13.5% of African skeletal remains were found, and some of the traits that were analyzed by Polish craniologist Andrzej Wazinski and Davarus, there were about 9. The degree of prognatism, height of nasal root, width of nasal roof, position of nasal aperture, position of nasal spine, degree of nasal spine, shapes of orbits, depth of canal facial, and depths of maxillary incisor. These are anthropological terms, but their traits were totally different to show that, hey, these were quote unquote African skeletal remains that were found, okay, among the ruling classes of the first major civilization in the Americas. And that's why I have here ancient, noble, and indigenous Americans, north, south, and adjoining islands in America, BCE.
I'm not gonna play them once.
Okay. All right, you were the commodity. Right. So at that time, any wealthy people with money, all right, no matter who they were, whether they were Catholics, Protestants, Irish, if you wanted to make money, you had land and you owed land, you needed someone to do work the plantation. So you would purchase what? Okay, Africans at the auction block. Okay, and it was free labor for umpteen years. Right? I don't know if you've seen that movie called 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
Okay, it was interesting.
Awful,
okay,
it was awful.
but the message in there though, if you think about the message though in there was when he said, "I'm free." Okay, I'm not a slave. You know, I'm a free man. They asked him, "Okay, you are? Okay, where's your papers at? Show your papers." Meaning that just because you said it was nothing, you had to prove it. Where's your papers at? All right, remember they intoxicated him, got him drunk.
And if you have to carry papers, you ain't free.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my point. All right, so anybody who wanted to profit, you were a commodity. Okay, you wasn't considered a human being. You were considered what? 3/5 of a human being. Okay, I have, and since we're talking that subject, I have a book here, and
but you see how when it goes back to that 12 years a slave, because you know they continue to make these movies that are very demeaning to black men, because if you look at the underlying thread or fabric of the message in that was that this guy did not exercise his freedom. He was waiting on the white man to free him throughout the whole entire flick. And also, they didn't show him as an individual. They showed him as a inferior creature to the white man without a family. Because, see, that would have given him a social balance. You notice there was no story about nothing put in there about his mother, father, wife, or children. You saw them, and that was it. She was busy buying her little fancy fabric in some white merchant shop, and that was it. You showed her as being a part of that pretentious, materialistic mentality. That's your freedom. You can go into these shops, and you can buy this expensive cloth. That's it. That's what they showed of his other self, his better half, his wife. That was it. And then as he's captured and he goes south, his whole act of trying to free himself was waiting on a white man, was begging a white man. That whole movie was so disturbing to me. And at the end, almost like Henry Box Brown, you know, he wants to free the birds and the free associating them, disassociation, you know. So I come to that. I know you were filming that. I guess you're gonna edit this out.
yeah. So how was he able to? What other way? Now remember, they took his papers. All right. He had no other way of proving that he was a quote unquote free man. So now, once he was taken to the South, what other way? Because remember, a couple people who he thought he can trust, they betrayed him in the movie. All right, it's one European, right? Who he thought he could trust.
He thought it was equal.
All right. So now, so what other option would he have? Because if you have no rights, all right, because remember now, whatever rights you thought you had was stripped now. Okay, and remember when he spoke with the European who bought him and told him, "Look, I just want to share with you. I'm a free man. I'm not a slave. This is by accident. I have my papers. They were stolen, etc." God told him, "Don't you ever talk like that again. I don't want to hear nothing like that." Okay,
free.
About free. So my point is,
even when you were free,
basically, at that particular time, you had no way of proving, okay, that you were a free man. Okay, and that's what I got of the show, that number one.
But he accepted it, and then another.
Well, I don't know.
Free.
In order to stay on a little target, just let me say this, and then I want us to get back.
Okay.
It's the same. What your position is the same as Conway West. That slavery was a choice. So what I would like for you to do. No, hold on. Yeah, I know. I understood what you're saying. You're saying you said the brother was waiting on someone.
No.
The white
Let
man.
me clarify this.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. You said that my position is that slavery is a choice.
Was a choice.
No. When you are enslaved, it's a mental conditioning. Let me quote W.B. Du Bois. if you take the chains off of the man's ankle in his hands and put it around his brain, you don't have to tell him to go to the back door. If there is none, he will create one. So that's not a choice, that's a mental conditioning. And it is clear and apparent. And he thought that he was free because some white man gave him a paper that said that he was free, and he didn't, and they took his paper, so therefore he's no longer free and he has to prove his freedom. That's not saying that he was responsible for his own conditioning. He was brainwashed. He thought he was free. He was, in fact, a slave of in every cultural sense of the word, because he could not direct his his freedom. He could not direct his liberty. He could not, he was, his word was not of any value. So therefore he was not a free man. And then when he went south, he decided that in order for him to prove his freedom, he needed the voice and the support and backing of a white man, a European man, not his own word, not any struggle that he thought that he could engage in that would free himself. So he accepted his position. And when he did not, he when he was engaged with a female slave, he did not take the position that he was the same as she. He thought he was in a different status. Okay. And also, he was supposed to be intelligent and a leader. He did not participate in the liberation of his people. So, guess what? He was okay with everyone else being a slave. And I'm not like this is not a critical analysis. This is just an observation. This is a reality. And that's the mental slavery.
Let's add to that, because this is where I wanted to go with that. I have and I'm gonna tie this in, because I have a book called Eligible Rights by Francis D. Adams and Barry Sanders, The Exclusion of African Americans in a White Man's Land, 1619 to 2000. Mm-hmm. Now, let me tie this in first with the 14th Amendment. All right. Now, and I'm going to show you where I'm going with this, because it's going to add on to what you just said. All right. Now, the 14th Amendment, Article 4 says, now listen to me carefully. It says all persons, now keyword persons. Now, what you pay attention, because a person can be what? A corporation. It can be an LLC. It doesn't have to be what? An organic living human being. We know that. Mm-hmm. All right. All persons born or what? Naturalized in the United States. Now, keyword, and subject. Sub means what? Below. Mm-hmm. Subject to the what? Law, mm-hmm. Jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. Words to speak jurisdiction. There are citizens of the United States and the states where they reside. Now, I want you to, keep that in mind, the keyword persons. Now, I'm going to quote something here, and I'm going to read this because this is tying to just what I'm saying. And it's on page, let's see, 51. It's 51. And I want to read this because this is going to tie in. This has to do with the Constitution, okay? Now, pay attention. Keep that word person, okay? Because this ties into just what we're talking about on this subject. It says here in chapter 3, and again, the book is Eligible Rights, The Exclusion of African Americans in a White Man's Land, 1619 to 2000 by Francis D. Adams and Barry Sanders, okay? That's the name of it, okay? Mm-hmm. Back of the book says, just as stockholders in a corporation that in the past created an ecological disaster cannot walk away from their obligation to make good on the damages, so white citizens cannot deny their involvement in America's moral failure by maintaining that it all happened before they were born, and consequently, it has nothing to do with them. And our willingness to dismiss the manifold social disadvantages that most blacks endure as simply the result of their own personal failings. We all share in the responsibility for America's continued exclusion of its black population. These are two Europeans. Now, I'm going to read this here, all right? Now, this is very important. It's called The Dark Side of the Constitution. It has to do with when the Constitution was set in motion. Now, this is a quote from Ben Franklin, which he quoted from first. When you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, you inevitably assemble all their prejudice, their passion, their errors of opinion, local interests, and their selfish views. All right, now William Lloyd Garrison, 1845, a covenant with dark and an agreement with hell. Now keep in mind the word person. All right. The 55 delegates who convened in May 1787 at the State House in Philadelphia will have no need of a naturalization act to recognize their countrymen. Having assembled to revise and strengthen the federal government, they will be representing only the nation's white population. While the South slaves clearly would be on the delegates' mind throughout the convention, the document they fully approved gave blacks absolutely nothing, certainly none of the universal natural rights the Declaration of Independence asserted everyone had at the birth, and not even the narrow protection slaves were given by the French in Louisiana under the Code Noir. Exactly what transpired in the Constitutional Convention deliberation remains secret for over 50 years, not because the delegates felt a need to hide which they dealt with the nation's black. Few white Americans have objected, but because they wanted to minimize any appearance of conflict, which they feared would jeopardize ratification. In 1840, however, the precise detail of what had gone on behind closed doors in Philadelphia became public, ending the voluntary silence the members had voted unanimously to impose in 1787. At the convention, the delegates had appointed an official secretary who could take careful notes, but James Madison also kept his own even more detailed records. Friends repeatedly urged him to publish his account, but he insisted that it remain private until all the framers had died. We're talking about the framers of the Constitution. In 1836, Madison, the last surviving member of the convention, passed away, and his notes of debates in the Federal Convention of 1787 was released 4 years later. Its publication shocked many of the countrymen, excuse me, not because Madison's account showed that slavery had been an issue at the convention, but because it revealed that slavery had been delegates' overriding preoccupation. Let me say that again. Slavery had been the delegates' overriding preoccupation. Slavery prompted almost every serious disagreement. Disagreements that the delegates managed to resolve only because Northerners and Southerners alike were willing to trample on the human rights of the nation's black population. Okay? Once the convention delegates became public, the abolitionists angrily condemned the proceedings. In 1845, William Lloyd Garrison described the Constitution, I'm quoting him, as a covenant with death and an agreement with hell. Inhumane, unjust, and affronting to God and man. Frederick Douglass echoed. One may choose to dismiss Garrison and his followers as extremists. After all, they argued not just for emancipation, but for immediate abolition and rejected anything less than all-out attack on slaveholders. But even a moderate like the Reverend Samuel J. May, who continued to defend the Constitution, declared that the publication of Madison's notes had disconcerted him. Quote, I could not so easily maintain my ground in a discussion which afterwards agitated so seriously the abolitionists themselves. So maintaining that the Constitution was and was intended to be pro-slavery. Granted to the slaveholders distinct privileges and protection for his slave property in return for certain commercial concessions upon his part toward the North. Phillips believed that the North and South had entered into a malicious bargaining, willing with open eyes, and thus free and slave states were partners in the guilt and responsible for the set of slavery. Though Madison notes reveal, now I'm getting into it deep now. Though Madison notes, you know who James Madison is, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Though Madison's notes revealed that members of the convention spoke freely about slaves, quote unquote, blacks, quote unquote, Negroes. They hear the words? Okay. Now keep in mind, who was talking about that in 1930s? Who was it? That you're not colored, you're not Negro. Who was saying that? Noble Drew Ali. Okay? Remember, okay? Though Madison's notes revealed that members of the convention spoke freely about, quote, slaves, quote unquote, black, quote unquote, Negroes, the final form of the Constitution avoided these words. Now pay attention, everybody. Avoided these words cryptically referring to African Americans as persons, 14th Amendment, or persons held to service or labor. Let me say that again, because remember the 14th Amendment. Though Madison's notes revealed that the members of the convention spoke freely about slaves, quote unquote, blacks, quote unquote, and Negroes, the final form of the Constitution avoided these words, cryptically referring to African Americans as persons, quote unquote, or quote unquote, persons held to service or labor. As Abraham Lincoln later observed, the delegates hid away slavery in the Constitution, just as afflicted man hides away a wind or cancer, which he declared, which he dares not cut out. Retreats over slavery had appeared initially in Congress under the Articles of Confederation, the nation's first attempt at a constitution, because, as William Patterson of New Jersey, who later became Supreme Court, noted, the amendments have been ashamed to use the term slave. Now, hear me out. What do you find in the Constitution? All persons born, keyword persons, born or naturalized, okay, born or naturalized in the United States and subjects to the jurisdiction thereof of the citizens of the United States and the states in which they reside. Basically, what they're telling you is, even in the Constitution, they hid away slavery. They were ashamed of that, and they just said persons, meaning that what? You're just a 13th, what are you? You're a 14th Amendment citizen. That's all you are, okay? You're not even a human being. You're just a what? 14th, that there, okay, took the place of what? Slavery, humanity, okay? Because they hid it in the Constitution. They didn't want to use the word Negro, black, okay, they were ashamed. So to get around slavery, all of the framers, what did they do? They used the word what? Persons, a person of servitude. You follow me? The power of the words, power of the word.
That
all right?
are subject to the jurisdiction.
Oh, say it again.
Laws.
Say it again.
That are subject to the jurisdictional laws
of the states of which you reside. So basically, you are subjects to the jurisdiction, whatever state, New York, Pennsylvania, in which you reside. Okay?
Subject, not an entitlement.
Okay?
But a subject.
Now, you see the key word? All persons. Persons here in the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment is not even capitalized.
Right.
Okay? So it's not important. It's what? It's not all persons, all right? Not even capitalized, all right? Describing all persons. Now, you see what they hit in the Constitution? They want to use the word slavery. They didn't want to use the word Negro, black. So they use what? Persons. No, remember it says persons or persons of servitude. Now, that didn't come out to what? 50 years after James Madison died. Okay? Now, these are two Europeans. Okay? Well worth reading. Okay? I got 2 copies of this, all right? And I just gave you just a glimpse of it. But since we talked about the Holocaust of human trafficking, even in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, all persons. See the same word? They hid it in the Constitution. Okay? So when they were saying persons, basically, they didn't want to get rid of slavery. They didn't want to deal with that. So we just what? Cover it up and just say all persons. All right? Now you see why the abolitionists was pissed off. Right. Because they realized what happened, but it wasn't published until 50 years later. Because remember, the Southerners were like, wait a minute, we making money off these folks. Okay, these are our quote unquote slaves. I mean, we ain't trying to get them up. And then what happened? In order to get their vote, in order to compromise, you see what they did. That's hiding in the Constitution. Now, how many people know about that? Okay, the power of the words. Okay, I had something here that I wrote down. Okay, in relationship to this conversation, and for the most part, all people and others, but since we're talking about us, and the majority of our people, 3 things seem to be missing: identity, self-knowledge, and self-revelations seem to be missing with our people. Okay, identity. Okay, who we are.
Who we are.
What you find out about yourself is what? Knowledge. Self-knowledge. What you found out about a pencil is what? Information. You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
What you find out about yourself is knowledge. What you find out about a pencil is information. You're just being informed about a pencil. So what? If it does not relate to you and it unraveling yourself, if it does not relate to you and unraveling yourself, it is not knowledge. It is merely information. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This had to unravel you because how many times is this taught in history classes? How many times did if anybody, especially our people, know that, wait a minute, this whole thing was hidden in the Constitution. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What I get this book for? I think I got it for $5 a sick hardback.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So the information is out there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you see the three things that seem to be missing from our people: self-identity, self-knowledge, okay, and self-revelation. It seemed to be missing. A lot has to do with, remember we talked about yesterday, the foundation of the Rockefeller and the what? Public educational system. All right? It's to maintain the status quo.
It's to maintain.
Okay? It's not to teach you, okay, how to live, okay, how to be you. All right?
Mm-hmm. And or be a competitor.
All right. So my point is, because we were talking about
subservient subject.
There
That's
it
what
is.
it teaches.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
Shop
my
classes,
main point is
electrical classes. And...
now get back to 12 years a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's tie it in. Let's take it home because I want to wait for you to make your point. Basically, he was just a what? 14th Amendment citizen that was subject to the jurisdiction of the North. Then he went down south. Now I don't care. You're subject to our jurisdiction now. So you know what, boy?
Yeah.
I don't care what you were doing up there.
You're here.
You're here now.
And this slave.
Okay.
This is a slave.
You didn't have basically.
And we have a right to
you didn't have no status.
You and enslave you.
You had no status.
Mm-hmm.
You had no nationality.
He wasn't
Okay.
interested in
You wasn't
running away.
sovereign. All right.
He was not interested in running away.
But now you have to understand too, and this is where you came in at. Well, you made a good point. The mental aspect, because in the North, I can play the violin. I can go. It was an integration where I can go among Europeans. I can talk. I can drink, etc. Now you didn't know that you were being set up.
Right.
Okay. But your status, you thought you had a status that says
of a free citizen.
Okay, no, not of a free citizen, of a free natural human being. Okay, because remember, a person can be a corporation. You look up the etymology. You look it up in the Black Laws Dictionary. A person could be a corporation. It could be an LLC. It could be a company. Okay, it can be, or it can be a organic human being. We don't know. It just says what? It doesn't define it. It just says all persons born or natural, but you're still subject to what? Jurisdiction. Juris means what? Law. Diction, to speak. The laws that I speak, that I say, you're subject to that. Because all you were, and all we were was a what? 14th Amendment citizen. You see how so they took slavery out of it and made you a what? Person. Subject to the jurisdiction of the state you reside. You see what Madison kept hitting for 50 years? That's why I said keep and pay attention to the word what? P-E-R-S-I-N. Now you said we were taught in class, but the noun is an identifier. The name of a person, place, or thing. Name of a person, place, or thing. Okay?
Right.
Person. No, okay. Name of a person.
Place and thing.
You
written in
so
that
at this
13th
point,
Amendment.
all right.
All covered in that 13th
okay.
Amendment.
So far as they're concerned,
all about it now.
You were just a thing. Okay. Now, where did you reside at? Think of the word residence. Now we're talking law now. Resident. R-E-S, ident. Res means a thing. Okay, when you look at the etymology word residence and law, a thing, identify. A thing to be identified. So when somebody said to you, where do you reside? Basically, we're asking you, you are a thing to be identified. So now you got to take out, let me see your license and registration to prove who you are. If you don't have it, and you drive it, and you don't have your license, registration, insurance, I can't prove who you are. You get a what? Ticket. You follow me? No different than when he said, hey, show me your papers. You say, you free boy, show me your papers. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, okay, smacked and whatever, okay, you are a thing. You're subject to this jurisdiction, and that's why I want you to finish first, but you see the parallel between, in the Constitution, hide, encrypted, slavery, Negro, black, all right? It was the most talked about subject during that Articles of the Confederation, okay? So we're hiding by saying persons or person of servitude. You get around it, you get the votes. And then in the Constitution, what do you have? All persons born or naturalized. Naturalized is somebody come from another country who ain't born over here. All right, but, whoa, wait a minute. I was the first Americans. How you gonna tell me I'm
Welcome. Come
naturalized?
on in. Come on
Okay, how
in.
you gonna
Have
tell
a
me I'm
seat
subject to your
and
jurisdiction
relax.
when
Back
I
in.
was here? My ancestors was here.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yes. And look at the images.
all right.
Look at the
So
proof.
how am I subject to the jurisdictions of which I reside if I'm an American first?
Because you're not in control.
Okay, and that's the bottom line.
Hmm.
Who controls the information, the knowledge? All right, is the ones who does what? Control you.
Controls you.
All right.
At the end of the discussion, you're welcome. After the end of the video, sorry about that, we can discuss it. So that'll probably be a little later because, we got some time on our hands on this. So just welcome. And if you want, you can come back and join the panel and we can talk.
That's my main point that I was making. So you can go out with a gun and you can shoot this person, this, that, and the other. That's not going to change
If
nothing.
you let them name you, they claim you.
That's my
They
point.
own you.
Okay.
You
So
let 'em
now,
name you.
now you begin to see where when Drew Ali, to a certain extent, misunderstood when he said that you're not Negro, you're not colored, you're not black. Now, black is not a bad word.
Why do they?
Okay.
They let them. They let them
But my
demonize it.
point is that
Accept
there
it.
was never a referendum where we said we all agree to be called Negro.
Right.
We all agree to be called colored.
Yeah.
We all agree to be called black. Okay. They are what? Adjectives.
Mhm.
Okay.
That describes us. Right.
That describe something. Nations, human beings do not identify themselves with Crayola crayons.
Mhm.
All right. You have 52 countries in Africa.
But what is the Crayola crayons coming in?
Okay.
Negro is a
well,
Spanish word that means black.
But
It's
my
just the
point
language.
is that how do we do it? Okay, what did he look like? Now, if I'm asking you, what did he look like? He's 5'11". He had a hat. I'm describing what he looked like.
Mhm.
But we don't do that. First thing we say, oh, he was black.
Mhm.
Oh, wait a minute. Am I giving him a nationality?
Yeah.
Or am I giving him, because the nationality is, oh, he's Moroccan. He's a Moor. He's Nigerian. He's Senegalese. That's a nationality.
You're being descriptive.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm giving you an identifier. I'm identify you at which in other words, my point is, okay, what is your nationality?
With that?
Okay.
Is there something wrong with that?
No, that's my point. It's not. But what we do is we're the only ones who
We
say
demonize
she black. Because we accepted somebody else's terminology and demonizations of us.
Right.
There was never a referendum.
Right.
Just like in there, okay, how do we get around slavery? How do we get around the word black, colored, Negro? How do we do it? We just say persons or persons of servitude and then hide it in the Constitution.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Let me.
When you talk about the Holocaust of human trafficking, first thing that you want to look at is that all European nations wasn't involved in the Holocaust of human trafficking at the beginning. First ones who came on the scene was who? Spanish, Portugal. All right. The Pope said, okay, Spain, you take the east, all right, and then you take the west. Okay, we're talking about as far as the European nations. Okay, but the Arabs played a role in that also. Okay, make no mistake about it, because when Spain and Portugal finally was at its peak, and and they decided, hey, you take the east, you take the west. Okay, then Portugal started coming to Africa. Remember, it's honorable trade 1st before the Holocaust of human trafficking. All right, you had goods that we needed. They traded, okay, with the kings of what? Benin, etc. But then they realized, remember, they were trying to penetrate into what? The interior, because at the beginning we're just on the outskirts of Africa. They wanted to go into that interior. All right. And once they start penetrating more to the interior, they realized, whoa, all of this rich resources down here. Then you have to look at the Arabs. Now the Arab play more.
What comes to mind is not to share your pearls with swine. You should never share your pearls with swine. And then once again, that's saying do not mix, do not, because basically what it did for us, it causes us to have more against us, more people We just create more people against us than we do. We think everything in good and goodness, but not everything is goodness. Even today, the world is mixed, right? And we're still doing the same thing. We're sharing our everything, our love, our everything with those who do not mean well to us. And it's all right to help people and be that light, but to a certain point, we have to recognize that they may not get it where they can help us. They are willing to. It may not be in their nature to do so. And if it does, if they do, it might be alternative motives. Always alternative motives behind it. Okay, let's continue.
A part also of what? As she's reading slave trade in the Indian Ocean, okay, the East Indies, etc. But the Arabs were in partnership, meaning that the first thing the Arabs did was what? All right, once they controlled, especially the northern part of Africa, all right, first thing any conqueror do is going to do what? Mate with your woman. All right, so now you have these bastardized children. All right, then you switch from matrilineal to patrilineal. All right, then you change certain what? Belief systems, quote unquote, ways of life, somebody else's cosmology,
Way of thinking.
and then what happened now, okay, with your weaponry and your force, you convert them to what? Forget or make theirs what? Inferior, quote unquote. And now you have what? No different than what happened to the quote unquote so called African American over here. You have a what? New person. All right. A new person that you restructured, okay, that you made to do what you want to do. Basically, what she was talking about earlier, what you took care of, what
Like
you controlled the what mental thinking, and then you colonized their concept of a what God, what they conceived it to be. You did what? Change it around and brought your ideology, your epistemology. Now, for those who didn't submit, for those who wanted to keep their traditional way of their ancestors, either what? Kill. Okay. For the most part, you were either killed or what?
Slave.
Or slaved. All right. So now, taking that into consideration, all right, then when you have what? The dungeons coming in, because now the Portuguese, they were at that time now, they were bringing in so many Africans or enslaving so many Africans that they needed what? Forts to build. So now you have what? The dungeons that they built all in what? The west coast of Africa to what? House your quote unquote stock.
52 in Ghana alone.
So that you can transport them what? Back to Europe, Brazil, etc. Because remember, at that time, who had Brazil? The Portuguese. All right. Brazil is bigger than the United States. So now for me to cultivate this land, what I need? I need manpower. I need labor. I got the sugar canes down here. I got rice. So I need labor. So now the so-called Indians, quote unquote Native Americans, they were dying out. They didn't last. So now where did the manpower come from?
Africa.
The continent. All right. So now I got the manpower to come over to do what? Give me free labor. And for those who didn't want to submit, okay, they're either enslaved or they were killed. All right. Now, all right, those where I didn't get honorable trade through some type of agreement, contract, or whatever, I'm going to conquer your land. I'm going to take over it. Now, what happened is, at the same time, what do you see? You see the Spanish, Portuguese, but then now, who comes on the scene next? The Dutch and the Atlantic slave trade, 1600 to 1815. Remember, the early part was Spain and Portugal. That would make sense because that's where the Moors were the longest, in Spain, okay, in the Iberian Peninsula. So they had the trade, they had the ships, etc. Now the Dutch came on and said, wait a minute, we want a piece of this also. Okay, we want a piece of the pie also. So now they get involved. Okay, good book, well worth reading. I mean, you can see how much I underline. This book here.
Hold on a minute. Now that I think about that, the Dutch are over in South Africa, conquering land there, still slowly taking over the Black people over there. So how come we're not holding them accountable for their evils that they still perpetrate today on our people? See, that's the problem with us. We can't operate as a separated, split groups here and there. We gotta work as a unit. And the group that I see working as a unit that sent the letter to the White House, that's a group, that's a worldwide group. And they are getting more, they got more done with the UN. But still, we still see the same thing. And that's my question. Why don't we stand up and have accountability? Because we know that justice anywhere is still justice everywhere for us. And we have been unjust. We've had unjust all over this land, all over the world, all over the planet, and it's still unjust for us because we do not know, but I know that these people take our money, our taxes. They are not supposed to take our money, anything from us. They make us in our little communities think that we're doing something for the good of services and this and that being provided, but really we're not getting. We really should not have to um, we shouldn't have to deal with that because they are manipulative people and they know they are. So they need to make the change, and we need to stand up and force them to make the change, like that willpower I was talking about, because it's not right. It's not right, just like it's not right in South Africa. The more we make, the more they take. That's crazy. That's slavery. We may not see it that way because it's a updated version. Let's just say that of everything.
My geez, how long did I have this? This came from Cambridge University Press. That's where I got this book from, Cambridge University Press. And I have the year I got it. I don't know, but this book cost me $65 plus $2 of postage and handling. And I probably had this book for at least 15 years. $65. Called the Dutch and Atlantic Slave Trade, 1618 to 1815 by Johannes Mine Pasma. Okay, very good book. This is the first thorough analysis of the Dutch participation in the transatlantic slave trade, based upon extensive research in Dutch archives. The book examines the whole range of Dutch involvement in Atlantic slave trade from the beginning of the 17th century to early 19th century. Approximately 550,000 slaves were transported on the Dutch ships from Africa, to the Western Hemisphere. Initially, the Dutch shipped slaves to northern Brazil, and during the second half of the 17th century, they had a controlling interest in the so-called Asiento trade to the Spanish colonies. The Guiana settlements in today's Suriname and Guyana became the prominent slave markets for the Dutch during the 18th century. The book is a great deal of attention to Africa and the acquisition of slaves, but it also provides much new information about the treatment or mortality of the
How they undermining us and still taking resources from the motherland, and we do not have any resources. That's called greed. That's called selfishness. And that's what fuel they run on. They want to call something the Middle East, and they allowed these invaders of Africa, which is not the Middle East, it's Africa, to take the oil reserves away from us. Everything is stolen. So who is the culprit in all of this? Who's the culprit? Who has the earth in a stagnant motion, in a standstill, because it will not provide for those that it has wronged, deeply wronged. And I don't care. I don't care how long ago, but I can show you most of the recent. And the recent is the point is we don't have our resources. We don't have the things we need to live because they know we are not like them by no means. We're not evil. They know this. We are those who will maintain nature and let nature flourish. But they have come because they were sent to be the destruction, to be the destroyers, to not allow that to happen. But on our end, our minds need to be sound where we realize we have the control over it all and stop falling for the propaganda, the lies, and the conspiracies that they have over us. Don't allow these conspiracies. Through your mind, we control all of that. Through our
Slaves during
mind.
the Middle Passage and examine the questions of profitability and the slave trade in a separate chapter. Okay, now you see how much stuff I didn't know, notes I did, and this is about 15, 20 years ago. Okay, for example, gold for crucial European dominance of world trade. Several hundred. Now this is Dutch. Here. Several hundred Sephardic Jews settled in Holland. They were originally from Portugal and had retreated. Okay, and had retained the Iberian culture. So now remember when the Sephardic Jews, okay, a lot of them lost power, got expelled from Spain. They went to Holland. We talked about earlier, Dutch, and established the Dutch East Indies, Dutch West Indies, okay? But this is just some of the stuff that I got out of this book here, all right? Some of the names, David Massey, Matthias Beck, okay? Cornick Solomon, name of the Wick ship. These are names, okay? Names of some of these people here. Solomon delivered 331 slaves to Puaka in 1658. It was mentioned as a great success. This is on page 116, I'm quoting. For other names of other Dutch Jewish slave ships and slave uprising, see page 166. What is an anciento? Page 29. Contracts. A term in Spanish. Public law was designate every contract made for the purpose of public utility. The Spanish government and private individuals. Okay. Also see page 354. Asienso contract meant that in return for a substantial, the royal because remember the Dutch took them in. The Dutch said, wait a minute, come on over here. We can use your services. Remember, they were merchants, they were skilled. Right. So why, okay, you don't want them in Spain? We'll take them. Right. Okay. And they came over, and then they're the ones who set up the Dutch East India, Dutch West India Company, and they became major backers. All right. But and that's when I said when you're dealing with the Holocaust of enslavement, human trafficking, you got to take each nation when it can. That's why you see my books on different aspects. Okay. Because all European nations wasn't in the beginning. Remember, when one European nation, like, okay, once you deal with the Dutch, who knocked them out the way? The English. Oh, okay. We want a part of this too. Okay. So that's where they were fighting among each other. But this is just some of the ones that I was, some of the stuff that I underlined here about the Asiento contracts.
Each other for
some of the other stuff here was, let's see. Okay. Okay. The WIC, WIC, was chartered in 1621 in East India. It was the East India Company that survived for 200 years. WIC played a significant part in the enslavement trade. Okay. Why involved? The Dutch captured northern Brazil. They called it the Governor of New Holland. They needed slaves for the acquisition of Brazil. So when they captured it, they needed slaves to work the land. WIC did not get involved at first. They had little interest, okay, with acquisition of Brazil. And 9 years after the founding of WIC, WIC, and the acquisition of Brazil, they got involved in the slave trade. Okay, no contemporary record is found with the consultation with the theologians. Okay, also, Lacasa, Bishop Bartholomew Lacasa persuaded Spanish monarch Martin V to allow African slaves to be brought to the Spanish colonies, as you know. Guzman Bernardo, Martin Guzman, who was an agent for the Portuguese under the Royal Portuguese Company. What was his person? Guzman's mission was to locate slave suppliers. He treated them with the English, French, and Portuguese. He was trading with the English, French, and Portuguese. After his death in 1675, Simon and Luís de Souza, these are Portuguese, became agents for Portugal. Okay, and I'm not going to go too much in it, but this is just some of the information about the Dutch being involved. Very good book. Very good book.
Yeah, see, I knew that the Dutch had engaged in war with Portugal. Portugal is the one that really controlled Brazil and populated Brazil with African enslaved persons from the Congo, Angola region.
And see, you will like this because this have the slave ships, the assignment, the number, how many, the total assigned, the percentage, the serial number, the towns, the regions, etc. The home ports, etc. All right. So once you begin to leave the Dutch, all right, because now late 17th, 18th century, who comes on the scene?
The British.
The British, English. Now, this is where it became a dirty, stinking, filthy.
It was all stinky.
Holocaust, if you will,
But
because the British.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say the British. They set it up because the Americans are the ones who really took it to the extreme.
But they
actually,
okay.
All right.
Call them Americans.
Okay. Well, okay. But I mean, we know they were colonies of Britain. They were just basically an extension of the British
American colonies.
Okay, the American colonists. Okay, let's use that. Okay. So now this is where when you want to really talk about
those are natives.
Liverpool, Bristol, and how Europe underdeveloped Africa.
That's it.
This is well worth reading here. Okay. All right. Well worth reading. The decisiveness of a short period of colonialism and its negative consequences for Africa sprang mainly from the fact that Africa lost power. Do you hear me? They lost the power. Power is the ultimate determinant in human society, being basically to the relationship within any group and between group, and it implies the ability to defend one's interests and, if necessary, to impose one will by any means available. In relations between people, the question of power determines maneuverability and bargaining, the extent to which a people survive as a physical and cultural entity. When one society finds itself forced to relinquish power entirely to another society, that in itself is a form of what? Underdevelopment. Before a bomb ended his life in the summer of 1980, Walter Rodney had created a powerful legacy. This pivotal work, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, had already brought a new perspective to the question of underdevelopment.
I think my next video is going to ask the question, why does Africa repeat the same thing over again? They just got out of colonization not too long ago, but in a short period of time, they are trusting those who have colonized them and who have caused a lot of manipulation and caused a lot of their troubles. I just can't get it. I just don't get it. I think it's the lack of understanding of who they are, why they are, and what they are, because they're going along with the system of democracy, which is that it's Satan giving you his demons. And they will continuously have Satan, have the devil's demons amongst them.
In Africa, okay? And it just goes on and on and on, all right? But the thing is that what's nice about this here is that this book here, as well as this one here, okay, deals with the economic aspect, all right? When you want to talk about here and here. Now, this more so in America, with the different unions and how basically the unions held our people back from progressing with the trades and all. This is well worth getting. The economic racism, Roots of Black Inequality by Victor Perla, because now with the unions starting up, the unions, okay, for Europeans over in Americas, a lot of us who were skilled, who wanted these jobs, they held them back and they kept bringing up immigrants because they didn't want you in their unions. All right. So remember, that puts you back right there. Then when you talk about Bristol, Liverpool, England, all right, and then you talk about building slave ships, you talk about insurance, because remember, insurance companies, okay, they got on the scene because they had to insure the traffic, the cargo. All right, the cargo. All right. So you can begin to see the making of how the British economy, England, Liverpool, just increased rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. The whole concept, the sun that never set in Britain. When Britain came on the scene, all right, they knocked everybody else off the butt. Okay, they just took over. All right, said, hey, and all of a sudden now there's no more Dutch involved. Okay, Portuguese. All right, they wasn't strong enough to hold this. Spain, they wasn't strong enough to hold this. So now the British came on the scene. Okay, now they're going with even more advanced
Welcome, General
weapons.
Mosquito.
Okay,
Nice to see
they're going
you,
to just
bright
take
and
over this
sunny.
because they're just killing, doing whatever they can, and they just keep penetrating. And then what happens now? Other European nations, and this is where the Berlin
Your day
Conference
be
came
awesome.
because now they said, wait a minute, why are we having these European nations? Why are we fighting against each other? You could take part, you could take part, I could take part, okay, and then we'll trade with each other. All right. So you talking?
Could you call that a world war, since you had all the European nations, practically all of them, at war? And you have to call it war because they're invading Africa and taking over its resources. So would you call that a world war?
Of course. I would also call it European nationalism. Okay. European nationalism, because remember what Walter Rodney said. If I come in and I conquered you, I'm in power now. You have no say so. You are subjects to the jurisdiction of where you reside. It doesn't matter that you own that land. It doesn't matter that you was once upon a time.
Sounds like I'm white and I say so. Purely,
now, the younger ones
I'm
coming up,
white
they don't know.
and I
No
say
different than us
so.
today.
Word.
Okay, because now you're going to be indoctrinated with what now? The planting of Christianity in Africa. Now we're talking about, let's be clear, we're talking about the European ideology, the European epistemology of Christianity in Africa. So now, okay, it's not only that I conquered the land, mineral resources, because we know Europe needed that. They needed the manpower, but they needed resources, okay? Right. And Africa was, at that time, was really unexplored in the interior, so they had a wealth of resources, okay? So if I'm coming into power and I'm conquering you, the first thing I want to do is, hey, I'm going to do a geological survey of your land. Whoa, gold, uranium. Okay, and this is where the names came from, the Ivory Coast, the Gold Coast. Why do you think these names came about? Okay, because of the precious metals that they had. South Africa with the diamonds, etc. So now the resources was there.
And the food.
Food was there. I can rape your woman, mate with your woman anytime I want. Okay, now I own you, so I can say, listen, tonight at 9 o'clock, I want you in my house. All right, well, nothing your husband can do. Okay, you can come back pregnant, but the bottom line is, you know what's going on tonight. Okay, so my main point is, now with all of that going on, okay, once no matter who it is, once a nation come over and conquer you, once people are defeated, you subject to their jurisdiction now. You subject to their laws.
I want to throw something in there to clarify. When people say that the Africans helped Europeans or did the Europeans dirty work, and you said it's much like where we are today. We are conquered people, and we go into the European army, and we'll go into Africa and fight Africans because we are inducted in the U.S. Army, and wherever they send us, you will go and fight or you will go to jail. The same thing happened to Africans. So when we are talking about Nigerians and the Belgian Congo, and you had Africans who was involved in cutting off the hands and of other Africans, it get into that.
But remember now, you had at the beginning stages, you had some African kings. Now you gotta took them all order, because you had the Arab invasion of Egypt. Here it is. You want to talk about a documented history of black slavery in Brazil? There you go. And then if you want a pictorial one, there you go. Okay.
Okay. You just picked up one that I want to.
If you just look at,
I say a lot of that, majority of that
is
comes from mixing. It's racial mixing.
Right.
Like I said,
if I need chips,
to swine.
if I need change, if I need insurance policies, okay, that means that I have to do what? I have to put a business together. Okay. So now, in order to put a business together, I got to employ people to work. So now, if I'm taking a European boy, the European girl, Okay, I can employ them, give them minuscule wages, but I need them to do what? All right, work in these areas where they're going to build it, where they're going to do what? Design the change. Okay, where they're going to help. I need what? Masons who's going to do what? Put the ships together. Okay, now if I'm captive, if I'm conquered, I'm not taking you that I conquered to do that. Who am I doing? I'm gonna employ my own people to do it. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So now the employment for my people begin to do what? Increase.
Right.
Okay, and it's going to continue to increase, but at the same time, as an owner, look how much economic resources that I'm bringing in. Not only am I providing jobs, no different than a landlord. If I'm the one who owns the houses, I'm providing what? I'm providing what? Community housing for the what? The tenants.
Right.
Okay. So the same thing with how Europe underdeveloped Africa, and this is where he talks about. Man, I got so much stuff underlined in here. Here's one section here where it says, what was doubtfully detrimental to African attempt to integrate their own economy was the fact that when Europeans became middlemen and local trade networks, they did so mainly to facilitate the extraction of captives and thereby subordinate the whole economies to the European slave trade. In Upper Guinea and Cape Verde Islands, the Portuguese and their mulatto descendants engaged in a large variety of exchanges involving cotton, dyes, cola nuts, and European products. The purpose of it was to fill the holds of slave ships. In Congo and Angola, the same picture emerges. The salt, cowrie shells, and palm cloth that came in Portugal hands made up their shortage of trade goods and served to purchase captives of different parts of the coast deep in the interior. The element of subordination and dependence is crucial to an understanding of African underdeveloped today, and its roots lies far back in the area of international trade. Okay? Let me see if I can find it. Development means a capacity for self-sustaining growth. It means that an economy must register advances, which in turn will promote further progress. The loss of industry and skill in Africa was extremely small if you measured it from the viewpoint of modern scientific achievement or even by standards of England in the late 18th century. However, it must be borne in mind that to be held back at one stage means that it is impossible to go further on. One of the features associated with technological advance is a spirit of scientific. Well, that's not what I wanted to read. I wanted to. There's a section in here. I just can't find it at the moment that I was looking for. Let me see if I have it written down. Man,
We'll wait.
Here's something where we're talking about the point, okay? Columbite was another of the African minerals valuable for the creation of steel alloys. Being highly heat resistant, one of the principal uses was in making steel for jet engines. First of all, it was rapid development of the European industry and technology which caused columbite to assume value. It had been a discarded byproduct of tin mining in Nigeria up until 1952. Then once it utilized, it gave further stimulus to European technology in a very sophisticated sphere of airplane engines. Obviously, according to the International Division of Labor prevailing under colonialism, it was the American, Canadian, British, and French workers who had access to the skills involved in working with columbite rather than a Nigerian worker who dug the ore out of the ground. For certain reasons, columbite fell off sharply in demand after a few years, but during that time it had contributed toward making the European metallurgists even more proficient and experienced. And that way, it was helping to promote self-sustained growth and to produce the gap, which is evident in any comparison of the developed and underdeveloped countries. Copper too fell neatly into the category under discussing. Unskilled production by Africans were required to get the ore for export, followed by refinement in a European capitalist plant. Copper was Africa's chief mineral export. Being an excellent conductor of electricity, it became an indispensable part of the capitalist electrical industry. It is an essential component of generators, motors, electric locomotive, telephones, telegraph, light and power lines, motor cars, buildings, ammunitions, radio, refrigerators, and a host of other things. A technological era tends to be defined by the principal source of power. Today, we speak of a nuclear age since the potential of nuclear power is shown to be immersed. The Industrial Revolution in Europe during the 18th and 19th century was the age of steam. In a parallel manner, the colonial epoch was the age of electricity. Therefore, the vital copper exports from the Congo, northern Rhodesia, and other parts of Africa were contributing to the leading sector of European technology. From that strategic position, its multiplier effect was innumerable and was incalculable benefit to the capitalist development. In that context of discussion of raw materials, special reference must again be made to the military. African minerals play a decisive role both with regard to conventional weapons and with regard to the breakthrough to atomic and nuclear weapons. It was from the Belgian Congo during the Second World War that the USA began getting the uranium that was a prerequisite to making the first atomic bomb. In any case, by the end of the colonial period, industry and the war machine and the colonizing nation had become so entwined and inseparable that any contribution to one was a contribution to the other. Therefore, Africa's massive contribution to what initially appears as a peaceful pursuit, such as the making of copper wire and steel alloys, ultimately took the shape of explosive devices, aircraft carriers, and so on. It was only after the European firearm reached a certain stage of effectiveness in the 19th century that it became possible for whites to colonize and dominate the whole world.
And your day be awesome.
Okay. The international division of labor of the colonial period also ensured that there would be a growth of employment opportunities in Europe, apart from the millions of white settlers who earned a living in and from Africa. Agricultural raw materials was processed in such a way as to form byproducts constituting industries in their own right. The number of jobs created in Europe and North America by the import of mineral ores from Africa, Asia, and Latin America can be seen from the massive employment roles of institutions such as steelworkers, automobile factories, aluminum plants, copper wire firms. Furthermore, those in turn stimulated the building industries, the transport industries, the munition industries, and so on. The mining that went on in Africa left holes in the ground, and the pattern of agricultural production left Africa's soils impoverished. But in Europe, agriculture and mineral endpoints built a massive industrial complex. Book well worth having in your library. One of the best books that I read on how Europe underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. All right. You know, bomb went off in his car. That's what killed him, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
When was
Yeah.
that?
He wasn't.
1980. Before Bob ended his life in the summer of 1980, Walter Rodney had created a powerful legacy. His pivotal work, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, had already brought in a new perspective to the question of underdevelopment in Africa. Okay. Bomb
So
off.
they killed him.
I would not put it past that somebody that he was actually killed. Okay. Bomb went off in his car.
A bomb. That's
Yes.
clearly he
Yeah.
was murdered.
Yes.
But why would they? What was the motivation behind that? Do you think? That book?
What's his
There's-
name again?
And then at that time, I think his ideology was a Marxist. Okay.
What was
You
his
know, at
name?
that
again?
time,
Walter
He was a
Rodney.
bunker.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, Walter Rodney. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
they thought he was going to run for
Okay,
president.
and I think that's right. That's correct. They
Yeah.
thought he was going to run. That's correct. I forgot about that. You're absolutely right. They thought he was going to run for president also. Okay. All right. Yeah. Not so much probably the ideology of being a Marxist, as a lot of other ones was too.
Yeah.
Richard Wright, etc. Look, no, Richard Wright was a communist. I'm sorry. Okay, but that's not much of a difference.
Right.
But yeah, I think he's run for president. But a lot of these books that came out in the early '80s, these type of books here,
Yeah.
you don't even hear about no more.
And you don't
Okay.
even see the
You know,
writings.
no.
No, you can get them on Amazon. Not all of them, but
Well,
you can
what I'm
get how
saying is, no, you can get them,
underwrite
but you don't hear much about people talking about them.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Okay,
They don't.
all right.
The-
You know,
philosophy.
because most people don't ask a question like, okay, after the Civil War, when we went to these quote unquote color schools and developed these skills, what happened that we couldn't get these jobs? You don't hear people asking these questions no more.
Right.
All right, it's almost unheard of. I mean, he asked it because now you're taking back to a point. What happened? Because what happened? Okay, and now you can bring this out at a particular time and show exactly what happened with our people. Okay, and why we are where we are to this day.
Mm-hmm.
See, remember what's hurting us now is that, okay, we don't, and you know, Dr. Clark mentioned that, okay, you don't even own a shoe manufacturer, make your own shoe, let alone your sock.
Resources.
So the fact that your ownership, okay, you are more so consumers.
But we certainly
All right.
were the ones that created and manufactured the
Yes, and that ain't gonna cut it.
But understood. But you didn't
That
have
ain't
the
gonna cut it.
authorization or power to get them patent.
Mhm.
All right. Or if they did, somebody else took credit.
Right.
My main point now is that if you want to get to see how Europe became so enriched, and then the Americas, you got to do your homework
Exactly.
across your disciplines, because remember
I
what
just
period
pulled
of
up a
time we're
book
talking
about
and this where these
us
guys come
here.
in at,
Mhm.
because they'll show you. All right. I mean,
Let me pause
this young lady here who's
It's got
Jewish
eight.
herself. I mean, I think she did a very good job doing a critical analysis of, okay, the fate of the Jews, okay,
Right.
from within, from without, and her information she put together. All right.
Mhm.
I never knew this book even existed until Dr. Mackey was talking about it. Okay, but it's a good, you know, critical book. So my main point is that when you have self-identity, self-knowledge, self-realization, self-actualization, all right, it's more than just feeling good about yourselves.
Mhm.
What it does, it allows you to see your greatness and know that that DNA, that genetic blueprint is still within you. All right.
Great
So
life.
that, and at the same time, you have to have a love for this here, because what we're doing now, you're not going to make no money off of. You're not, because it's not going to get you rich. You can forget that. All right. Very few people's interested in our history, our culture. So it's not going to make you rich. This has to come from within. You got to have a love for this right here, that heart chakra. Okay.
Mhm.
But when you understand that our history, our nationality, our arts and sciences is world history, okay? And that whatever period that you want to talk about prior to the Holocaust or human trafficking, you were there.
That's
Mhm.
Now
right.
it gives you a different perspective. See, the
Exactly.
kids, I don't want you to just say you were there. What did you do? How did you contribute? You follow me? Whether you're talking religion, whether you're talking the three major ones, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, your participation, your foundation, whether you're talking the arts and sciences, and at the same time, you don't have to belittle another nation. You don't have to belittle other nationalities. You don't have to do that, because your history is so well-rounded, so well-grounded and
So
great.
rich.
You don't have to look down and call somebody else a cracker. Okay.
We're so
Right,
rich.
that. You don't have to do none of that. Okay. That's not necessary. That just goes really your lack of ignorance. Okay. You can have a dialogue, okay, and just ask simple questions and have somebody challenge you on your information.
Yes.
Because when you're confident
Mhm.
through self-knowledge and identity, self-realization, no matter who you're talking to, okay, you don't know about a subject matter, you ask. But the key is, don't just take the word for granted. What is the etymology of that word? Because people just throw words at us.
Mhm.
All right. Like I told you, word black. It's not a bad word.
No.
It just means to burn, to shine. That's what the etymology of the word means. It comes from the Sanskrit word blade. Okay, but the black, B-L-A-C-K, it didn't come. That word itself is a modern English word, roughly around what, 1600.
Right.
Okay, it just means to burn, to shine, to make bright.
And we also have to take and keep into consideration that this is not our language, and so you
Let
talk
me
about etymology.
get past
That's
this a
the
little
etymology
because
of the English.
this
No,
is
no, no, this-
repeating itself.
Because I already got it down.
Okay, here we
2022.
go.
2022. And here it is. All right. Here's the root. BHEL. You with me?
Mhm.
And what does it mean? To shine, flash, burn, shift in white. Okay. Dramatic. Okay. Bleach. Old English.
White.
Bleaken. Okay.
Mhm.
Now,
Right.
extended root. Blade. Sanskrit, which means what? To shine, to flash, to burn. Okay. Zero grade form. BHLOG. Burn.
And that's what
Okay.
we are.
And
That's why
Greek.
I say light being.
Flagian. You follow me?
We
Because
are
the P and F
divine
is
light.
interchangeable. There it is in Greek. Flagian. Okay? Zero grade block.
And I'm
Okay?
here just
So you follow
there.
me when you understand the etymology of
Light
a word.
of
Now let's take
all
another word and we're going to end there. The
bad
word
good
consider. CONSIDER.
that I like to say.
Desire. DESIRE. Okay, disaster. Now, when you think of the word consider, what comes to your mind when somebody say consider? They say, what does that mean? What do you think about?
Think about.
You give
Exactly.
credence.
You know, let's get on.
You are fair and even.
Now let's break the word down. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
con, together or with, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what con. Now let's look at the word consider, page 392. We're going to end on this one. Show you what etymology does. Okay? 392. Now look at the word consider. When you go to the etymological brackets, okay? Put my glasses on.
Yeah,
When you
I
go to
don't
the
have that.
etymological brackets, okay? The word consider, right? Now these are the etymological brackets, okay? As you can see, the brackets, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Middle English, considering from Old French, Latin, coming in together, okay? Now, COMCIDUS, cider, CIDR, what does it mean?
Cider.
No. What does the word sitter, SIDER? Okay, Latin is situs, but it means what? There it is right there. To consider the stars.
The stars.
That is correct. Because Latin is like sidereal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sidereal means what? Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so the word consider originally
Yeah.
means to consider the
Right.
stars.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so my main point is you see what etymology does. Now, it never stopped meaning that. We
Mm-hmm.
just think, oh, I'll consider it. I mean, you're gonna think about it. No, but when you look at its original, take it back to its original context, it means con means together with. Sitter, the Latin word is siderius, okay, which means to consider the stars, meaning you're gonna do what? Consult the stars. You're gonna study the stars.
Right. Yeah.
Now you see what the ancients did?
Mm-hmm.
Study the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sidereal. Okay, stars. Okay. That's what etymology does for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't start at the entry level. You got to go to etymological brackets. So what happened? They gave you a way to take you back to the original root.
So when someone says consider, isn't that the same thing as I will consider something with regard to your request?
But the original meaning, the true meaning of the word consider means to consult the stars. It never stopped meaning that. The connotative meaning, the distorted meaning, I'll think about something. That's the connotative meaning, meaning you're implying something else. But the denotative means what is note, its marker, what does it signify? What is its reference point? Its reference point is the stars.
To consider in a good way, in a realistic way, in a reaching way, given all the benefit of the doubt. No, you can't.
Well, but remember, when you deal with the etymology of the word,
That's
the word itself,
means
it broke it down. Sidereal or siderius means what?
Exactly.
Stars.
That's right.
Con means together or with, meaning I'm going to do what? I'm going to do something, okay? Consult or do something with the what? Stars. That's the true meaning. That's what I said about etymology. Ology means study of. Etymology is the true origins and meaning of a word. Syntax is how words are constructed or put together over a period of time. But etymology deals with the true origins and meaning of the word. So you take the word church. We always told church denotes what? Circle.
Mm-hmm.
But circle denotes what?
Earth.
The zodiac.
Oh,
Zodiac,
okay.
yeah.
Okay? The zodiac is what?
Mm-hmm.
An arc, a circle, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody say to me, I go to church. I say, yeah, I consult the stars.
The spiritual.
Okay? You're doing the same thing because
Mm-hmm.
what do you see in most churches when you go to the front of the building? A circle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of your old churches, you see animals.
Right.
Okay? How many religious places you go to where you don't see some type of animals involved.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
pictures I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
Of
Then that circle
problems.
also denotes the what? The sun.
It's the foundation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It comes
Now
from
you're
nature.
not going to hear most of that because most people don't get into the architect of the buildings. All right, and study the history behind it. But that's what etymology does for you.
Mhm.
Okay, it takes you back to the true origins and meaning of a word.
Foundation.
Just like we talked about the word slave. You know, you heard me say a lot, human trafficking, Holocaust of human trafficking, because slave originally denote the what? Slovenian people. All right. Matter of fact, here it is for you. Okay. Okay. That's where the word came from. Slavic. Okay. Slavic. In the Balkan states. Okay. Slavic. Okay. That's
And
what it
they
was.
ascribed
Okay.
their
They were Eastern
language
Europeans.
to
Right.
our
They were-
social conditioning
They were,
and our
well, remember
definitions.
they were conquered by, was it the Russians? I can't remember. They were conquered and then they were made servants. Okay, but the word slave, its root is Slavic.
Right.
So I don't say slaves. I say what? Human trafficking. The Holocaust of human trafficking, because slave or Slavic deals with a what? Eastern European people. To me, $152. Okay, but you got to know the law. Okay, you got to know the law. If you don't know the law, okay, how you gonna know what certain words? Since words mean something different than law.
Mm.
Okay,
Yes.
like the word I told you before, the word resonance.
Latin. 'Cause
Okay,
it's a
that is
different
correct.
language.
Resonance, I told you.
Yeah.
Okay, in law, resonance means okay, a thing to be identified. Rus means a thing, identified. All right.
Mhm.
Same with minority. When you deal with the word minority, minority in law means okay. It doesn't mean numbers. Okay, it means somebody who's below the age of 18. Okay, you can't think for yourself. Okay, can't think of the correct word. It means
Well, that is
a minor.
numbers.
A minor.
It is numbers.
Okay, it's a minor.
Mhm.
Okay, so if I'm calling myself a minority, that means okay, you're still a minor, that you need legal advice.
Right.
If I'm saying, hey, we're people of color, you're saying that you're artificial because in law the word color means to hide the appearance of that which is real, but it's not really real when you know law.
Mm-hmm.
So I never say, oh, we're people of color, because again, if you know law, that's what it means in legal sense. It's not a bad word. It's just that you have to know terminology. So when you study, you have your dictionary here, you have your law dictionary, okay? Now, most people houses, this is what you only want to see. Where's it at? I got it right
Oh,
here
that
somewhere.
other
You know what I'm
dictionary.
talking, you
Yeah,
know
I
what
know
I'm
the
talking
one.
about. Okay.
Yeah, Webster's or something.
Okay.
Like
No, the you're gonna see in most of our people homes. Maybe a dictionary, but you're definitely gonna see this. Okay.
that. Right.
Nothing wrong with it, but
No,
you
there's
gotta
something
gotta
wrong
complement, you know, you gotta have the disciplines, okay? You gotta be able to cross-reference.
with it.
Okay. But you see the sandwich we did yesterday, the sun, the circle,
Mhm.
okay, the bird.
Mhm.
You seen it on the vase upstairs with the falcon, same profile.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
same profile. That's why I said, I'm not gonna dismiss it. I'm gonna show you the origins because I know this side of it and I know the other side.
Mhm.
I know the African blueprint, okay, and I know the distorted blueprint. So now I can talk about it. See, and that's what Dr. Clark said. You got to know Western or European history, and then you got to know your history. Okay,
Right.
got to know
Yeah.
both.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm. History. All right.
okay,
The story.
all right.
The story.
But you see what I mean when I said you, and I'm gonna end on that. It's Indo-European
Mhm.
because when they went over there, those tribes and stuff went into India, okay, or Sindhu, they conquered at the same time. Then they begin to do what? Take their language, all right, their sounds, and then shift it. It's called reconstruction, or reconstructed the language.
Mm-hmm.
But the European tells you that by saying proto, meaning first, Indo, in which English is a branch of that.
Great.
But it's not a language, it's a
I'm gonna have
branch.
to
Because
get it.
remember,
I'm gonna have to
root
use
words. You see how I
utilize
took you back to the root word of
sometime.
black,
Mm-hmm.
blade, okay, Sanskrit, all right, and BHEL, the Indo-European, what it is in dramatic, what it, because English is a what? Dramatic language. Here it is right here. Okay, when you look at dramatic, look where English fall in. You got, here's dramatic, right? And then you got English right here. You got low, okay, you got, where's English at? Just had it. Got my glasses
Move, yeah, just move to the east a little.
on.
Yeah.
I don't have my. Oh, right here. Yeah, here it is, right here. Northern Dramatic. Okay. Middle English right here, and Old English. You see this? Here's Dramatic, and then there's Middle English right there. So you know what? It's a dramatic language. All right. It's a dramatic. Now,
Meaning German?
It's German. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Latin, under Latin, you have what? Portuguese, Spanish, okay, French, that's Latin, okay? But English doesn't fall under Latin. It falls under what? Dramatic. You have Old English, Middle English, and then Low English, okay? So that's how, when you read the family of charts, but no, that's not European. It's Indo first. Europeans came and conquered and then reconstructed it, okay? And made sounds and that made other what letters. It just reconstructed, That's all. All right. But most of the time we don't go in the back of this to see this. So you hear us the white man's language. Okay, you speaking English. You speaking what? No. It's Sanskrit. Now, if you understand your history and you understand the Indus Valley, Indus Kush or Sindhu, you can see some of the earliest people. N.J. Rogers section race, present day. Okay, these people ain't coming through the Holocaust of human trafficking. They were there first. Their ancestors were there first. Now you begin to see, okay, there's no such thing as European languages. They're branches of what? Sanskrit. That's my point.
Last piece we want to discuss is the Arab invasion of Africa.
What specifically do you?
Yeah, let me just give me some more. Minister Brown, there's a book that was called by John D. Graff Johnson, African Glory. Have you ever heard of that book?
African Glory, yes.
Okay.
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a very good book because he deals with the first part of the Arab invasion of North Africa. And one of the things I found interesting was that one of the African warriors, a woman by the name of Katrina, she held off the Arabs for quite a while. Okay, before they finally defeated her. Okay,
this is where?
This was in the northern part of Africa. I can't remember what particular section, but when the Arabs came over there, all right, to conquer that area, this was a female. And I got the book upstairs. I thought I wrote it down, but I don't think I did. It's called African Glory, and he speaks of her and talks about her. The other thing with the Arabs is one of the things that the reason why the Arabs were able to push and dominate as fast as they did, okay, with Islam, okay, because it wasn't so much the weaponry. Because what happened was, remember we talked about it somewhat yesterday, the fall of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I just let me set this up. I'm looking at, because all of North Africa at one point was African.
That's correct.
Black Africans. But if you look at North Africa now, and I'm talking about Egypt, I'm talking about Libya, Algeria, all across North Africa, all the way over to Morocco, is all Arabs.
And the reason for that is because once they conquered that area, okay, remember, once they conquered that, it's like certain other areas that we were at before. They pretty much moved us out, and we never replenished those areas with what? Other African people. We were pushed further what? South.
How did they do that?
What
periods?
Hey,
good man. When the Arabs took over North Africa,
right, sunshine your way.
Before, you had the Moors going into Spain. Okay, the Arabs, when they finally conquered Egypt, North Africa, they settled there. All right, they also did what? Mixed with the women. They brought in they brought in what? Okay, more Arabs, and then at the same time, all right, they pushed the Africans further south. So from about the early 8th, 9th century, I said, or later than that, they controlled quite a bit of. Excuse me 1 second, please. What you find when the Arabs finally came into North Africa, okay, remember, you got to remember what happened even before the Arabs came in. What happened? We lost quite a bit of North Africa even before the Arabs came in, because remember who came in prior to the Arabs invading Africa and pushed a lot of us further south.
Portugal,
Who came before the Arabs?
Portuguese.
You had the Romans who
Mm-hmm.
conquered North Africa. You follow me now? What you had
Mm-hmm.
so now remember
Greeks,
you're lightening
Romans.
up. You had the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you had the Macedonian Greeks, you had the Ptolemies, you had the Persians. So really, you can look right really at the time when 525 BC when the Persians came in, and 332 BC when the Greeks came in. We already start losing a good percentage of Africa back then,
Mm-hmm.
because remember, you kept coming in with what from Western Asia, the Greeks. Then when the Greeks finally lost power, who came and dominated North Africa then? The Romans. All right, Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once the Romans lost North Africa, because remember, once they conquered Carthage, they controlled all of that. But now, what happened? They expanded their empire so much and taxed the people that they couldn't keep up with it. So now you had a lot of internal structure and breakdown within Rome. So now what happens next? It made it easier for who? The Arabs to come along, because when the Goths, Visigoths went into Rome, conquered that, you had to fall pretty much of what? Rome, or almost the Dark Ages. Now the Arabs, now at the same time, the Arabs under Prophet Muhammad coming in with a new wave, new force, all right? So now we already lost the bulk of North Africa, was already old and gray. So when the Arabs came in, really, even before you talk about Africans, who that part of Africa, even before the Arabs came in, how much did we control by then?
Yes, that's correct.
You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So we lost that way before. In other words, it was set up, it was set in motion before the even Arabs came on the scene.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? How long did the Romans stay there? How long did the Greeks control North Africa? Now, you remember, you still have other ethnic people coming in from Western Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So remember, what happens when we got pushed further what? South. Okay? Because remember, most of those nations knew very little about the southern part of Africa. They stopped right around the word first, second cataract. You with me? But they never penetrated into the interior of Africa, okay, in the deeper part of Zimbabwe and in the Congo. That didn't happen to what? The Europeans, the English and them started penetrating. Because number one, the Arabs didn't have what? They didn't have the ships. Okay? They didn't have the manpower to go there. They didn't even know much about that. So they stopped North Africa, because their whole, first of all, the main thing they did was what? Outside of North Africa and Arabia, they were more concerned with what? The Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal. You follow me? Trading in the Indian Ocean. That's where they started at. Okay. Now, what happens where they start being able to go deeper into Africa is when what? Spain and Portugal start building better ships. They start trading with the Arabs. Remember, because the Arabs are doing what? They were holding Europeans ransom, or the Moors. I should just say Arabs. The Moors, when they lost power, they controlled the seas. So now when Europe was trading with them, okay, they would capture the people and hold them for ransom in North Africa. And then the Europeans had to what? Pay tributes. Do you know George Washington, okay, was one of the ones? I mean, these early, they were paying almost $1 million in annual tributes to the Moroccan government. Okay, the Catholic Church, the Knights of Malta, to get their people back, because they were conquering them. They were pirates. They were conquering them. Their powers belonged to a nation, which was Morocco. All right. So now, at the same time, remember, they control all that. Even Africans had already lost power there. Okay.
That means that a lot of things have not been told in that era of George Washington to us.
Push further. Now, once the Portuguese and Spanish, okay, especially Portugal, start coming into Northern Africa and trade, okay, you have petty kings, but you also have Arabs involved as the middlemen. You follow me? They were the middlemen who set everything up. Then once they had it set up, it made it easy for the Portugals to do what? Penetrate, because remember, they had the ships now.
Right.
Okay. The gunpowder was already invented. The weaponry was already invented. So it made them easier to do it. So now what happened was, what did the Arabs do? They didn't stop there also. they start now penetrating further what? Into the southern part of Africa,
yeah.
okay? And that's what happens. So by the time we start even hearing about this, the 18th century, the Arabs, remember, and not just the Arabs, the Mameluke Turks, okay? The Ottoman Turks, all of them were already what? In North Africa, okay? So what happened? They made them what? Eunuchs, or what do you call slaves, okay? They also took away their manhood and bastardized them. Then they what? Made it with our woman, because now if I mate with your woman, I'm part what? Of the society now, okay? I'm part of that clan. So now, with the result that they didn't have no sentimental attachment to the Africans, they used them as slave labor also to do what? Build up their economy. And until this day, how long the slave trafficking? Even you even hear about slave trafficking in the early part of the 20th century when what? Who was
Leopold?
Okay, yes, okay. Well, Arabs still conquering, all right, those Africans and making them as slaves over there in the northern part of Africa. Okay, was it UNESCO? Somebody had to get involved. I can't remember who it was that got involved with that. Okay, but that was still going on in the 20th century. So the Arabs said, outside of if you were a devout Muslim, you follow Islam, okay, you went on, did your prayers, etc. You know, and that's not to say all Arabs were bad. Because you never generally say all Arabs were bad, but you're talking about in terms of control, in terms of that land never belonged to them. All right, the people you see over there now, all right, they benefited off of what? Their forefathers and foremothers, okay? But it didn't start with them. It made it easier for them to come because we lost it when the Greeks and Persians invaded us. Okay, remember the last time we controlled most of that is when Pianki, okay, Kushite came and captured back Pianki, and who else was it? Taharqa captured it back. After that, that was it. Okay, when the Greeks came in, the Macedonian Greeks, the Ptolemies, the Romans, North Africa was already lost. You had bits and pieces of us there, but for the most part, we lost most of that North Africa. Okay, so a lot of those priests, they went what? Further south, went to other places. So it made it easier, okay, for the Arabs to come in because Rome had already fell. It's easy to just come on in and wipe them right on out. Okay, Constantinople, okay, who was it? The Turks that took that over. Okay, so that was all set up for the Arabs in the early 18th, 19th century. Then they became in partnership with the Europeans and did what? Sold the Africans. There was no sentimental attachment.
Same religion, though.
Pardon me?
Same religion in the sense that they were spreading Islam and converting Africans and then using the children of that mixture to conquer other Africans.
That is correct. Because now you don't have a sentimental attachment because now I'm tracing my line of descent through the what? Father now. Okay.
But it made it look like Africans capturing Africans and selling them into slavery.
Well, you know what? Remember, a lot of them you had a choice that you wish you didn't have to make. Either you participate or you get bumped off. Okay, or you get enslaved. So you had a choice, okay, that you wish you didn't have to make. Some of because remember, you had a lot of Africans who did fight now, okay. But you remember, if I got powerful weapons, I got better ships, I got better weaponry, my manpower better than you. Eventually, how long is it going to last? Because remember, Africa was already weak because you already had the Greeks in there. All right, how long did they stay in Egypt when they conquered North Africa? All right. Then you had another wave of Europeans who came in, was what? The Romans. Persians was there. Assyrians was there. The Arabs were Johnny come latelys. By the time they came, everything was already messed up. Okay, Rome, the Gauls was there. You had the Dark Ages in Europe, so it made it easy for the Arabs to come in and do what they had to do.
And they came with gunpowder.
And they came with force and gunpowder, and they came to do what? Conquer. Now, once I conquered you, it becomes mine. The conqueror always get the spoils. You can't get around that. They were no different than the European mercenary or the European, colonists that came in to do what? All right, conquer. Now, within Islam, we already know, okay, there were many Africans who went into the early making of Islam because we talked about them. Al-Jahiz, Zarid, okay, Okay, so we know. Now the Arabs don't give them credit for it. Okay, you don't hear anything about Al Jahez, you don't hear anything about Zarib, you don't hear anything about Khufu the Magnificent, you don't hear anything about Anton. These were the early makers of Islam, don't know what, 7th, 8th, and 9th century. You follow me? I read to you about Zarib yesterday. Look what he contributed to Europe alone. One man. Now, how often do you hear about that from any Arab sources?
That's true.
Okay? You read about that in a magazine called what? Renaissance. Last time I heard about something that was in depth, and you probably didn't know because you probably didn't connect the name, was the Golden Age of the Moors, because Van Sertima, somebody article mentioned it. I think it's Jose, what's his name? Jose Pientes Bay.
Jose
Pimento Bay, right. All right. I think he mentioned Zarid.
Yes.
But you see with their Renaissance magazine, how they break that down with the fashions. Now, who would even think that here it is who revolutionized the whole culture of Europe? One man changed your seasons when you're going to wear your clothes. Invented Europe's first toothpaste. One man. You talking about a Renaissance man? Start your food off with desserts. Then your meats. And then you ended it with your what?
Start your food off with soups.
Soups, I mean. Soups. Then your main course, and then you ended up with what? Dessert. Changing it to tablecloths, okay? Cutting your hair in bangs. Who would think that, excuse me 1 second, put that on hold. Al-Jahez, one of the greatest satires of that day. That's my point that, and so I look at both sides. We know what the Arabs did, okay? But those Africans who did accept Islam, all right, look what they did. But did you hear anywhere where those Zarib and all of them committed a genocide on their own people?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
They didn't.
All right.
They accepted Islam.
Okay.
But they knew what to change and what not to change.
Okay. Now you start getting closer to the 14th, 15th century, where now you're further removed from your traditional African way of life. Now you get the Moroccan emperor like who? Bilal ibn il-Mansur, a Moroccan nationalist, or more, who does what? Look like you and I, got to take the bitter with the sweet, committing a what? Culture genocide on their brothers in what? The Sungay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Right.
But you see the difference now between those from the 7th, 8th, and 9th century versus later on. Okay? You were Muslim, you accepted Islam, but at the same time, those same brothers and sisters who were Muslims who accepted Islam and that Sungay Empire, you destroyed it and you used what? European mercenary as well as European ammunition from Queen Elizabeth, daughter of Henry VIII, to conquer those people, and then brought up into exile the greatest scholar of that day, Ahmed Baba.
Lift the curse.
So where's your allegiance at? I wish to unify Islam. Ahmed Baba asked him, why don't you start with the Turks? Okay, they don't practice, they don't do X, Y, and Z. Couldn't ask him. So the whole thing was what? He wanted control, he wanted power. Was it that you wanted to unify Islam? Because remember, you asked the Sangay to do what? Give up your area, give up your land. Okay, coming to, combine with Morocco. We're good where we at, we cool. And they were still devout Muslims. So what reason did you have to go down there and conquer their land? They won't bother you because remember, they already lost power in Spain. A lot of the Arabs retreated back to what? Their home base. At that time, what? North Africa. Okay? Remember, Felix Du Bois says what? A lot of the Arabs came down into University of San apply for teaching positions at the University of San Croix at Timbuktu. They weren't qualified for. Right. So remember, they retreated back in North Africa. Where else did you have to go after you lost power? Okay, because you had Arabs who were also in the Iberian Peninsula. It just wasn't us there. Okay, we were the Moors, but you also had the Arabs there too. Okay, you had that partnership. But when it went bad inside, when they lost it, it went bad. You follow me? Because the same person, Bo Abdil, also sent for what? Help in North Africa when he was fighting Ferdinand and Isabella, and they ignored him and would not send him help. Because, of course, their position was, we didn't like you negotiating back and forth. But he had no choice. Okay? He was trying to diplomat. He was trying to use diplomacy. He had no choice. But you didn't give him the manpower he needed to what? Defeat Isabella. More than one occasion, he wrote back to North Africa for help. Didn't honor his request. So many of those same Arabs today, they don't have a sentimental attachment to African women. Okay? This thing is about what? Wealth, power,
and control.
Okay?
Same
And
like
these same
today.
Arabs in our communities today, they don't even hire African people.
No.
And they're still exploiting your daughters and young girls that go in these stores. They're exploiting them today.
Yeah, well, that has two sides to it, because you see a lot of young men going there and condole with these Arabs, black men, African men, and insult black women. And they sit there and they laugh and they talk about who they laid. They're talking to these Arabs who would not bring any of their women in their neighborhood. You will never see an Arab woman who is in any way affiliated with any of those Arab men in their stores. The black man will never set eyes on his wife, in other words. You don't see them. And I have witnessed on many occasions black men going talking about the women, and when they come in the store and they're laughing, and he thinks that those Arab men are his friends. So you talk about.
All right. Let me see. That's not the end. I don't think. It might be. Let's see. I'm going to scroll.
Change universal law. You cannot change universal nature.
Okay. This is interesting. Okay.
How would you date, or how old would you say Egyptian civilization probably?
You know, to be honest with you, I have no idea when the comedians come on the scene, okay, when we even get a glimpse of their history, they were already at a certain level. We know Herodotus, who came late, said that they recorded 4 great years. You know, great years based off of what the precessions of the equinox, precession of the equinox, the earth wobble, tilts like a spinning top, etc. And remember, they said they recorded 4 great years.
So that's 100,000 years.
Okay. And you know they did, because here are the 4s. Okay. Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, Taurus. You follow me?
Yeah.
All right. But remember now, they're able to see this through what? What they call the crucifixion of the earth through the what? Galactic and ecliptic. Galactic, because they were studying this. Remember, we talked about yesterday the galactic cross and the tropical cross. All right. And that's what this is telling you here. All right. Since we talked about that, the galactic alignment is the alignment of the December solstice sun with the galactic equator. The alignment occurs as a result of the precession of the equinox. Precession is caused by the earth wobbling very slowly on its axis and shift the position of the equinox and solstice 1 degree every 71.5 years. All right. Now you see it now. The galactic cross. What do you see that at? St. Peter's and Paul Square, Rome. Look at it. Here's right here. That's the galactic cross. You follow me? You see that there? That's the galactic cross right there. Here it is. Here you see the galactic, right? And ecliptic. Okay, galactic. And galactic and the tropical. Galactic. You follow me? Now you see why I have this here. Because now you can see why I have this here. St. Peter's and Paul Square. I didn't hit it just because of aesthetics. You see an African symbol in the middle, Comedian symbol, and then you see what? Right here. You see the tropical cross, and you see the what? Galactic cross. You see it here in this design? Okay. All right. That's the purpose of me having this here, because you can see African symbolism in European architecture.
According to the work of Walter Williams, it was African architects and African builders who brought about the construction of St. Peter's. That's St. Peter's.
That's it. St. Peter's Square. Yeah, the
Uh,
Basilica of St. Peter's Square.
he said that because it was the Africans who conceived Osirapis, which later becomes Jesus the Christ. But Africans, the African priesthood, the Melchite Coptic Egyptians, that brought that concept into being, and they ceremoniously bestowed the rituals on Ptolemy I Lagi to make him a god, and they took the attributes of Serapis and the bull Apis, and ceremoniously brought about Osirapis, which later on in these councils ultimately becomes Jesus. But during that time, the teaching staff of all of this was Melchite Coptic Egyptians, black folk, and that they built the first Christian church, the Sophia Hagia, and they built also St. Peter's. Have you read anything, come across any
I don't
knowledge?
have enough information in reference to them actually constructing or participated in the architectural building of St. Peter's Square. All right, I'm familiar with the three African popes and the Coptic Church, the Melchite, but in terms of me having enough information to substantiate that, I don't have that. So I really can't say for sure if in fact they participated in that. We do know that when Rome conquered ancient Egypt, that at the same time the Roman soldiers took a lot of their culture, took their ways of life, okay, the whole adoration around Osiris, Set, and the Madonna and Child. We know the Roman soldiers took that to other lands that they conquered.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that's how that so-called quote-unquote Madonna and Child, the Black Madonna and Child, got into, okay, Christian Europe or Catholic Europe, Spain, Portugal, France, Ireland, etc. Because the Roman soldiers, when they came and conquered those people, they took that way of life, that religion, those statues, etc., over to those countries.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely know, all right, that played a major part too, their way of life, their tradition, etc. But in terms of just building a cathedral, I'm not sure. But we know that somebody had to, those architects in Rome, they had to know something, because you see the design here. Okay, and most people only see this. They pay attention to just the basilica, they pay attention to the saints, the statues, but they don't look at the what? Okay, the galactic and the galactic and the tropical cross and the galactic cross. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Most people won't even see that when they look at this here. Okay, you can see it here in this picture. That's why I have it up here, but you can see it here. Okay, galactic and then a tropical, and then you can see it here. Tropical galactic. Now, why is that designed?
Kind of like what they call UFO.
So those masons just wasn't building for the sake of just building a building. They were encoding what?
Right.
What they're seeing above in the universe. You follow me? They crypted, they encoded it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now the average, because so obviously they had to be the stone masons,
Mm-hmm.
all right, and they had to have some knowledge of doing what? Observing other peoples. Remember, the Romans had the advantage because what? They were Johnny come lately, so they were able to do what? Copy off of the who? Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Greeks were Johnny come ladies because they were able to copy off of what? The non-violence, the
right.
Africans, okay? The Comedians,
Mm-hmm.
okay? The Sethians, etc. Okay? They were able to copy. So now that information was just passed on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Some of them were initiated. Okay. Many of them was, but some were initiated. Some had a certain amount. Because remember, when Alexander conquered Kemet, they had access to the libraries.
Mm-hmm.
So they had all the information. They had the priests who they forced to what? Translate into what? Greek.
Right.
Then the Greek translated into Latin. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then you had the other what? People on the outside who had their own way of life, who lived by themselves, such as who? The Essenes,
Mm-hmm.
Nazarenes, the Gnostics. You follow me? Now you begin to see. Now remember, all these took bits and pieces because remember, Kemet sent their priests out throughout different nations, and those who
Right.
were ready, they were taught. Let
Mm-hmm.
alone all the colonies that Comedians, the other nations who were under their colonies. All right, so they
I
just
want you to
pass that
see
information off.
similarity here. So that the Rothschild send his sons out amongst their different nations, which was all of Europe. And, money is their God. Money is their God. It's not the proper way as these high priests that were sent out from Kemet to spread the word amongst our people who were all in all lands, all throughout the planet. Now, that alone is greatness for me, to me.
For those who were ready. Okay, those who were ready to seek the knowledge and were initiated. So that's how a lot of that got to these other nations.
But that's interesting because it says that the African did not try to spread and teach the higher knowledge. They
See,
tried to enlighten humanity.
one of the reasons why everybody came into the Nile Valley, because what is the main thing that the comedians had? They had an abundance of what? Food.
Food.
A lot of other places did not have food. It was famine. Now, in order to have abundance of food, in order to grow your crops, okay, what is the main thing you had to do? You had to develop a calendar, okay? And that calendar was based off of what? Studying astronomy and astrology. That's the purpose of that calendar, to feed yourselves. Here's the main thing that we can't get away from. And this is why the U.S. is such control now, because they control the food supply. Main thing here. See this? This is Kemet. Okay, so how thick this is?
Yeah.
This stuff over the years. All right, here's the main thing that we can't forget. What does it say? The earliest food producers, and let me read this. Okay, exciting new fun. This was by Fred Werdorf and Romuald Sheed, I believe it's called. Okay, I think it was an archaeology magazine. Exciting new finds in the arid zones of Africa are challenging some of the most cherished assumptions about the birth of agriculture. For over 30 years, the Middle East has been regarded as the cradle of human civilization, and the age of success of domesticating plants and animals has stood approximately 10,000 to 9,000 years ago. While scholars have differed as to exactly where the first domestication involved, or what exact climate and demographic pressure prompted the first venture into controlled food production, there has been widespread agreement that the process began from the end of the last glacial some 10,000 years ago. The consensus is that most have occurred in areas where the wild relatives of the first known domesticated plants, wheat and barley, grow today. The domestication of animals is thought to have begun in the Middle East as well, in the same general era as domesticated plants, about the same time. Now listen to me carefully. Now, however, serious evidence has been found which suggests that people began controlling food production significantly earlier than was previously believed, and in an area at first seemed highly unlikely. That region is Africa, and the evidence consists of food remains and artifacts assembled that bolted together. Just how the remaining mills standing along the raceway can be reserved in a central problem facing the great faults of historic districts. All right. And then it just goes on to explain where it took place that. And it's basically saying here that, okay, and I'll just read this right quick. Excavators, including the authors, have come upon grinding stones and other harvesting implements in context that suggest the earliest cultivation of grains in the Nile Valley. The Egyptian site had been dated from 17,000 to 18,000 years ago. One of them even produced the remains of charred wheat and barley grains, plants which have never been native to that region. Although positive identification of these grains and domestication is simply not possible, they nonetheless remain candidates for the oldest known humanly nurtured grain in the world. Okay?
I want to switch up a little bit. Is when after the Civil War, African people made greater progress in terms of teaching themselves how to read, um, organizing their communities, because uh, we became a self-sufficient people. You didn't have just one. What uh, the community that was destroyed by
You talk
bombs,
about Black Wall Street?
Black Wall Street. We had hundreds of Black Wall Streets. And you were just talking about, you were just reading from that book that deals with the Jews. Um, Africans had all of the skills in terms of brick masonry, building, etc. And the unions are what really, and you touch on that, uh, destroyed African, um, not so much control, but their involvement in the building trades and their dominance of the building trade. Can you go into that perhaps?
Well, they wasn't able to exercise their skills. The only jobs that they were able to do, and that's what this book, which is well worth reading, called the Economic Racism, okay, Roots of Black Inequality. Um, and what's nice about this, it shows that basically the jobs that you had, there were skilled jobs. You only got the jobs that others didn't want to do that they consider dirty. He told you about the coal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any jobs was considered dirty, but then when you had diesel fuel, now those immigrants they brought in, okay, to take those jobs. So what happened now? Those skilled workers who were skilled in the skilled masons who had it, they were still pushed behind. All right. You didn't control the unions, and that's what this whole book here is about. And I got this book when I was at Temple University in 1980. Matter of fact, the one who who recommended this book when I had her class was Sonia Sanchez.
Oh,
okay. When she taught at Temple, and
Right.
she was in the African American Studies department. And I found this book and it's a book you don't even hear about, but it's a book where he really breaks down exactly what we're talking about, what curtail or what stopped the progress, because with the development of the unions, okay, including the AFL-CIO, all of them. Did I say that right? AFL CIO.
Mhm.
Okay, none of them wanted to include our people. We were exclusive. All right. Jobs for even to the point where you were just a porter. That was probably the most mediocre job that you can have back then, but that was late before you got that. But that's what stopped our progress. All right, because we couldn't find the work. We didn't control the industries. We didn't control the unions. All right, the unions were predominantly what? All European. Okay, who created the unions. So what happened is that they excluded us. Okay, and that's exactly why it's called the economics of racism, because they use
hold that up again.
They use what? Economics as a way of saying, hey, if I can control the economics, if I can control your economy, if I control, guess what? That just it's economic what? Holocaust, economic slavery. Because if I can control that, then you can't feed yourself.
I'm going to share also this
You see
book.
why
Let me stop it
the Africans,
so you can see
okay,
that book.
comedic.
Y'all note this book, Economics of Racism in USA, and also this book here. Let me stop sharing that and I'll share this with you guys. This book right here, How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America. How we have a fight in talking about how capitalism was never a good thing. The corporations have taken over everything. Our fight, and today, it would be that we have continued to be on the bottom. We have continued to be treated like slaves, and we continue to get treated like slaves. Having a social security number, the Federal Reserve's lies, the hunt, all of it. lies behind everything to make this society benefit the ones who have portrayed these things upon us in the first place. And that's not right. That's not going to cut it. Going into 2023, 2024, no. And this is when the world that they know it starts ending. When we become enlightened to who we are, what we are, why we are, that we're not just here for just to enjoy and to travel and to all these distractions they put there for us to keep working hard to benefit the capitalists and not ever get the things that we are inherently entitled to. Inherently entitled to. All right, let's continue.
The Hessians, Setians, misnomer ancient Egyptians, Nubians, why they were self-sufficient? Because they control what? Their food. They control their economy. All right? And everybody came there. That's what's happening even now today. All right? If I control you, if I control how much money you're going to bring in every week, then I can control where you're going to live at. I can control, okay, the information that's going to be put on TV. All right? I can control the information that's going to be read. All right? That's the importance of being in control.
Even not.
And that's exactly what happened during that particular time. And that's what this book deals with, just what the unions did. All right? And I was young. I couldn't have been no more than maybe 24, 25 when I read this. But it opened my eyes up because that was my first glimpse of, wow, look what the unions did that was being organized here. They didn't have no sentimental attachment for our people. So they couldn't get the jobs. Okay? This thing about joining unions now, that's recent. Okay? So with the immigrants coming in, all right, they were the ones who were what? Joining the unions. Then when the strikes went on, what happened? Okay? We wanted to go ahead and work, but now they wouldn't let us do it because of what happened. The immigrants came right on in. Okay? Now, when it was time we finally got in the unions, as he shows here, you were used as a buffer. Then as time went on, you start making a little progress, you know, that you got now. But that's exactly after the civil rights what happened, okay? The unions played a major part in America here of holding you back, okay? And then if you were part of that union, you got the low skill jobs. Digging a ditch, all right? That's it. I remember somebody telling me when they were at the Philadelphia Gas Works, when early stages, I remember a guy telling me that somebody would say, hey, go over there and get that shovel. While you going over and get this shovel, he would tighten the pipe up, put the cap on there, do what he had to do so you couldn't see him. So when you come back, it was already done. He would cover it up because he didn't want you to see what he was doing because of fear of taking over his job. I remember a guy at the gas company some years ago when I first started this, like 30 years ago, told me that. That's what was happening. Okay, so that played a major role in why we were held back with the unions. There's another book that I have too, called the. Do I have it down here? Let me go get it. Do I have it down here? The housing. Okay. And how you were read, you know, certain areas were cut off where you couldn't buy houses. In other words, it was coded. Okay, it was because you know when you and let's talk about that. Red zone. But why did he use the terminology, the color of law? All right, now again, this is where etymology plays a part at, because the word color, when you're dealing with law, it means to hide, conceal. Okay, that's what it actually means in law. All right, the perception of perceiving that which is real. Because if I take a crayon, I color something, I'm doing what? I'm hiding something now. Okay, so you know the word, that's what it means. So again, we talking labels. You went from what? Nigger or Negro to colored to black. You follow all these terms, okay? That somebody else gave you, and we just accepted it. because there was never a referendum saying, hey, we're going to consider call ourselves colored, Negro. Okay? These are terminology somebody else threw on us. And we just went on accepted it. There was never a referendum where we said, okay, but my point is the color of law, meaning that they use laws to do what? Red district color certain areas where you couldn't even buy a house. And then you remember, right, when Donald Trump first started to run for president, the whole concept with his father in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how he wouldn't, you go in, you apply for apartment.
Mm-hmm.
They would take the paperwork with your application, put C. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we'll call you C, mean you were colored. You would never get a call.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then remember, they took his father to court for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they paid or settled, but they claim still it was never settled because there was any wrongdoing. And we never meant the wrongdoing. Well, the fact that you paid or settled to say that you know what you did it because of what you did wrong. But that actually happened.
And it wasn't corrected.
Okay. No. So you can see laws were put in place to continue to do what? Hold us back. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's exactly what happened, and that's what this book dealt with after the civil rights. I mean, after the Civil War, and that we had the skills. Okay, we had the skills, but the unions, all right, they didn't want you. They felt threatened that you were going to take the jobs over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even hear about this book no more. Okay, I was trying to figure. I might have paid what $5.95 for it.
I wonder if one of them might be still hanging around.
Because now the hardback back then was $10.50. So I must have paid maybe about $3 or $4.95 when I bought it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Still happens today.
$6.95 when this first came out. $6.95 when I first bought this. Okay. Okay. But my main point is, you see what a library does, mm-hmm. All right? You can't. Nothing takes the place, and that's one of the things where Europeans still have their archival continuity in place, because anytime they want to research something, want information, they can go right to the libraries. You never hear them saying, "Oh, let's go to YouTube. Let's go to Twitter and get it."
Yeah,
they go to the libraries. Right. Okay, right. They go to the microfilms.
And
right,
could be on
right.
YouTube. They could be edited
exactly.
And then and
when somebody's doing a master's, they're doing a PhD, they utilize them libraries.
Absolutely.
Okay.
When they write in an expose, they're in the libraries. When I go to the main branch library in New York.
Or if you want to talk about the Arab invasion of Egypt, here it is. You want to talk about a documented history of black slavery in Brazil? There you go. And then if you want a pictorial one, there you go. Okay.
Okay. You just picked up one that I want to.
If you just look at the economy today, if I want to build up economy, all right, if I need ships, if I need chains, if I need insurance policies, okay, that means that I have to do what? I have to put a business together. Okay. So now, in order to put a business together, I got to employ people to work. So now if I'm taking a European boy, the European girl, okay, I can employ them, give them minuscule wages, but I need them to do what? All right. Work in these areas where they're going to build it, where they're going to do what? Design the change. Okay. Where they're going to, I need what? Masons who's going to do what? Put the ships together. Okay. Now, if I'm captive, if I'm conquered, I'm not taking you that I conquered to do that. Who am I doing? I'm going to employ my own people to do it. You follow me? Mm-hmm. So now the employment for my people begin to do what? Increase.
Right.
Okay. And it's going to continue to increase, but at the same time, as an owner, look how much economic resources that I'm bringing in. Not only am I providing jobs, no different than a landlord. If I'm the one who owns the houses, I'm providing what? I'm providing what? Community housing for the what? The tenants.
Right.
Okay. So the same thing with how Europe underdeveloped Africa, and this is where he talks about. Man, I got so much stuff underlined in here. Here's one section here where it says, what was doubtedly detrimental to African attempt to integrate their own economy was the fact that when Europeans became middlemen and local trade networks. They did so mainly to facilitate the extraction of captives and thereby subordinate the whole economies to the European slave trade. In Upper Guinea and Cape Verde Islands, the Portuguese and their mulatto descendants engaged in a large variety of exchanges involving cotton, dyes, cola nuts, and European products. The purpose of it was to fill the holds of slave ships. In Congo and Angola, the same picture emerges. The salt, cowrie shells, and palm cloth that came in Portugal hands made up their shortage of trade goods and served to purchase captives of different parts of the coast deep in the interior. The element of subordination and dependence is crucial to an understanding of African underdeveloped today, and its roots lies far back in the area of international trade. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Development means a capacity for self-sustaining growth. It means that an economy must register advances, which in turn will promote further progress. The loss of industry and skill in Africa was extremely small if you measured it from the viewpoint of modern scientific achievement or even by standards of England in the late 18th century. However, it must be borne in mind that to be held back at one stage means that it is impossible to go further on. One of the features associated with technological advance is a spirit of scientific. Well, that's not what I wanted to read. I wanted to. There's a section in here. I just can't find it at the moment that I was looking for. Let me see if I have it written down. Man,
We'll wait.
Here's something where we talk about the point, okay? Columbite was another of the African minerals valuable for the creation of steel alloys. Being highly heat resistant, one of the principal uses was in making steel for jet engines. First of all, it was rapid development of the European industry and technology which caused columbite to assume value. It had been discarded. It had been a discarded byproduct of tin mining in Nigeria up until 1952. Then, once it utilized, it gave further stimulus to European technology and a very sophisticated sphere of airplane engines. Obviously, according to the International Division of Labor prevailing under colonialism, it was the American, Canadian, British, and French workers who had access to the skills involved in working with columbite rather than the Nigerian worker who dug the ore out of the ground. For certain reasons, columbite fell off sharply in demand after a few years, but during that time it had contributed toward making the European metallurgists even more proficient and experienced. And that way, it was helping to promote self-sustained growth and to produce the gap, which is evident in any comparison of the developed and underdeveloped countries. Copper too fell neatly into the category under discussing. Unskilled production by Africans were required to get the ore for export, followed by refinement in the European capitalist plan. Copper was Africa's chief mineral export. Being an excellent conductor of electricity, it became an indispensable part of the capitalist electrical industry. It is an essential component of generators, motors, electric locomotive, telephones, telegraph, light and power lines, motor cars, buildings, ammunitions, radio, refrigerators, and a host of other things. A technological era tends to be defined by the principal source of power. Today, we speak of a nuclear age since the potential of nuclear power is shown to be immersed. The Industrial Revolution in Europe during the 18th and 19th century was the age of steam. In a parallel manner, the colonial epoch was the age of electricity. Therefore, the vital copper exports from the Congo, northern Rhodesia, and other parts of Africa were contributing to the leading sector of European technology. From that strategic position, its multiplier effect was innumerable and was incalculable benefit to the capitalist development. In that context of discussion of raw materials, special reference must again be made to the military. African minerals play a decisive role both with regard to conventional weapons and with regard to the breakthrough to atomic and nuclear weapons. It was from the Belgian Congo during the Second World War that the USA began getting the uranium that was a prerequisite to making the first atomic bomb. In any case, by the end of the colonial period, industry and the war machine and the colonizing nation had become so entwined and inseparable that any contribution to one was a contribution to the other. Therefore, Africa's massive contribution to what initially appears as a peaceful pursuit, such as the making of copper wire and steel alloys, ultimately took the shape of explosive devices, aircraft carriers, and so on. It was only after the European firearm reached a certain stage of effectiveness in the 19th century that it became possible for whites to colonize and dominate the whole world.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
The International Division of Labor of the colonial period also ensured that there would be a growth of employment opportunities in Europe, apart from the millions of white settlers who earned a living in and from Africa. Agricultural raw materials was processed in such a way as to form byproducts constituting industries in their own right. The number of jobs created in Europe and North America by the import of mineral ores from Africa, Asia, and Latin America can be seen from the massive employment roles of institutions such as steelworkers, automobile factories, aluminum plants, copper wire firms. Furthermore, those in turn stimulated the building industries, the transport industries, the munition industries, and so on. The mining that went on in Africa left holes in the ground, and the pattern of agricultural production left Africa's soils impoverished. But in Europe, agriculture and mineral endpoints built a massive industrial complex.
Mhm.
Book well worth having in your library. One of the best books that I read on how Europe underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. All right. You know, bomb went off in his car. That's what killed him. You know.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was
Yeah.
that?
He wasn't.
Wait, what?
1980.
Okay,
Before Bob ended his life in the summer of 1980, Walter Rodney had created a powerful legacy. This pivotal work, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, had already brought in a new perspective to the question of underdevelopment in Africa. Okay. Bomb
So
went
they
off.
killed him.
I would not put it past that somebody that he was actually killed. Okay. Bomb went off in his car.
A bomb. That's
Yes.
clearly he was
Yeah.
murdered.
yes.
But why would they? What was the motivation behind that? Do you think? That book.
This. And then at that time I think his ideology was a Marxist. Okay. You know, at that time
He
you
was a
were
brother.
okay.
Black
Yeah,
guy?
no, yeah. Yeah, Walter Rodney, yeah.
I think
Okay.
they thought he was going to run for president.
Okay, and I think that's right. That's correct. They
Yeah.
thought he was going to run. That's correct. I forgot about that. You're absolutely right. They thought he was going to run for president also. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, not so much probably the ideology of being a Marxist. A lot of other ones was too.
Yeah.
Richard Wright, etc. Okay, no, Richard Wright was a communist. I'm sorry. Okay, but that's not much of a difference.
Right.
But yeah, I think he's going for president. But a lot of these books that came out in the early '80s, stuff the books here,
Yeah.
you don't even hear about no more.
And you don't even
Okay.
see the
You don't see,
graphics.
no.
No, you can get them on Amazon. Not all of them, but
Well,
you can
what I'm
get how.
saying is, no, you can
Europe
get them,
underdeveloped
but you don't hear much about people talking about them.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Okay,
They don't.
all right.
The-
You know,
philosophy.
because most people don't ask a question like, okay, after the Civil War, when we went to these quote unquote color schools and developed these skills, what happened that we couldn't get these jobs? You don't hear people asking these questions no more. All right, it's almost unheard of. I mean, he asked it because now you're taking back to a point. What happened? Because what happened? Okay, and now you can bring this out at a particular time and show exactly what happened with our people. Okay, and why we are where we are to this day.
Mm-hmm.
See, remember what's hurting us now is that, okay, we don't, and you know, Dr. Clark mentioned that, okay, you don't even own a shoe manufacturer, make your own shoe, let alone your sock. So the fact that your ownership, okay, you are more so consumers.
But we said
All
we
right.
were the ones that created and manufactured the whole country.
But understood. But you didn't have the authorization or power to get them patent.
Mhm.
All right. Or if they did, somebody else took credit.
Right.
my main point now is that if you want to get to see how Europe became so enriched, and then the Americas, you got to do your homework across your disciplines, because remember what period of time you want to talk about, and this is where these guys come in at, because they'll show you. All right, I mean, this young lady here who's Jewish herself, I mean, I think she did a very good job doing a critical analysis of, okay, the fate of the Jews, okay, from within, from without, and her information she put together. All right, I never knew this book even existed until Dr. Mackey was talking about it. Okay, but it's a good, critical book. So my main point is that when you have self-identity, self-knowledge, self-realization, self-actualization, all right, it's more than just feeling good about yourselves. What it does, it allows you to see your greatness and know that that DNA, that genetic blueprint is still within you. All right, so that, and at the same time, you have to have a love for this here, because what we're doing now, you're not going to make no money off of. It's not going to get you rich. You can forget that. All right. Very few people is interested in our history, our culture. So it's not going to make you rich. This has to come from within. You got to have a love for this right here, that heart chakra. Okay. But when you understand that our history, our nationality, our arts and sciences is world history. Okay, and that whatever period that you want to talk about prior to the Holocaust or human trafficking, you were there.
That's right.
Now it gives you a different perspective. See, the key is, I don't want you to just say you were there. What did you do? How did you contribute? You follow me? Whether you're talking religion, whether you're talking the three major ones, Javinians, it just means to burn and shine to in this river. Okay. Then it came to Hindu, that's Arabic, and then Indo-Indian, which is British. But when you look at the family tree of European languages, it comes from Sanskrit. Sanskrit means to put together. Right. Just like the word Aryan, that's not European. It's Sanskrit, Arya, which means noble. When their Germanic tribes went over there from Iran, etc., and other places, all right, they conquered those people and they took on and called themselves Aryans or noble. But when you look at the family branches, that's why you have Indo and you have the European over here. But those words, those sounds, those words, okay, that's why I said black, you have to take it back to Sanskrit. Sanskrit means to put together. And Sanskrit is B-L-E-G, Blague. Black, okay, is modern. Then and you have to go Old English, Middle English, okay? So you got to be careful, because there is no really such thing as European languages, all right? You have sounds, but it's Indo first, Indo-European. Proto means proto. First it was Indo. When somebody conquered you, they took on your language, then they did what? Change, all right? And that's why anytime you look at a dictionary, it gives you in the etymological brackets,
we're located.
See this word in appendix. All right, then it gives you what it is in Old English, Dramatic, French, L-A-C-K. Okay, black. Now, if you just go with the etymological, you go with the first one, of or belonging to a racial group. That's not the origins of it. You got to go right here to the etymological brackets. Okay, Middle English, B-L-A-K. From Old English, B-L-A-C. Now it says go to the appendix to see the word B-H-E-L. Are you with me? An appendix. So now you go to B-H-E-L to see the root of that word, all right? And I'm going to page 2022 because I already got it down, 2022. 2022. That's what etymology does for you. Mm-hmm. You don't start at the entry level. You got to go to etymological brackets. So what happened, they gave you a way to take you back to the original root.
So when someone says consider, isn't that the same thing as I will consider something with regard to your request?
But the original meaning, the true meaning of the word consider means to consult the stars. It never stopped meaning that. The connotative meaning, the distorted meaning, I'll think about something. That's the connotative meaning, meaning you're implying something else. But the denotative means what It's note, it's marker. What does it
West, and
signify?
it's
What is its reference
stars.
point?
And I
Its reference point is the
doubt,
stars.
To
hardly doubt
consider
that
in
low level
a
being
good way,
stars.
in a realistic way,
Low
in a
level.
reaching way, given all the benefit of the doubt. No, you can't.
Well, but remember, when you deal with the etymology of the word,
That's
the word itself,
means
it broke it down. Sidereal or siderius means what? Stars.
Okay.
Con means together or with, meaning I'm going to do what? I'm going to do something, okay? Consult or do something with the what? Stars. That's the true meaning. That's what I say about etymology. Ology means study of. Etymology is the true origins and meaning of a word. Syntax is how words are constructed or put together over a period of time. But etymology deals with the true origins and meaning of the word. So you take the word church. We always told church denotes what? Circle. But circle denotes what?
Earth.
The zodiac.
Oh,
Zodiac,
okay.
yeah.
Okay? The zodiac is what? An arc, a circle, right?
Mhm.
So somebody said to me, I go to church. I say, yeah, I consult the stars.
It's spiritual.
Okay? You're doing the same thing because what do you see in most churches when you go to the front of the building? A circle, right? Some of your old churches, you see animals.
Right.
Okay? How many religious places you go to where you don't see some type of animals involved?
Right.
Okay? Pictures I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right? Then that circle also denotes the what? The sun. Okay? All right? Now, you're not going to hear most of that because most people don't get into the architect of the buildings, all right, and study the history behind it. But that's what etymology does for you. Okay? It takes you back to the true origins and meaning of a word. Just like we talked about the word slave. You know, you heard me say a lot, human trafficking, Holocaust and human trafficking, because slave originally denote the what? Slovenian people. All right. Matter of fact, here it is for you. Okay. Okay. That's where the word came from. Slavic. Okay. Slavic. In the Baltic states. Okay. Slavic. Okay. That's what it was. Okay. They were Eastern Europeans. Right.
Our social conditioning and our.
Well, remember they were conquered by, was it the Russians? I can't remember. They were conquered and then they were made servants. Okay. But the word slave, its root is Slavic.
Right. What specifically do you?
Yeah, let me give me some water. Minister Brown, there's a book that was called by John DeGraff Johnson, African Glory. Have you ever heard of that book?
African Glory, yes.
Okay.
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a very good book because he deals with the first part of the Arab invasion of North Africa. And one of the things I found interesting was that one of the African warriors, a woman by the name of Katrina, she held off the Arabs for quite a while. Okay, before they finally defeated her. Okay,
this is where?
This was in the northern part of Africa. I can't remember what particular section, but when the Arabs came over there, all right, to conquer that area, this was a female, and I got the book upstairs. I thought I brought it down, but I don't think I did. It's called African Glory, and he speaks of her and talks about her. The other thing with the Arabs is one of the things that the reason why the Arabs were able to push and dominate as fast as they did, okay, with Islam, okay, because it wasn't so much the weaponry, because what happened was, remember we talked about it somewhat yesterday, the fall of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I just let me set this up. I'm looking at, because all of North Africa at one point was African.
That's correct.
Black Africans. But if you look at North Africa now, and I'm talking about Egypt, I'm talking about Libya, Algeria, all across North Africa, all the way over to Morocco, is all Arabs.
And the reason for that is because once they conquered that area, okay, remember, once they conquered that, it's like certain other areas that we were at before. They pretty much moved us out, and we never replenished those areas with what? Other African people. We were pushed further what? South.
How did they do that?
You had a combination of both. Okay, when the Arabs took over North Africa, this is even before you had the Moors going into Spain. Okay, the Arabs, when they finally conquered Egypt, North Africa, they settled there. All right. They also did what? Mixed with the women. They brought in they brought in what? Okay, more Arabs, and then at the same time, all right, they pushed the Africans further south. So from about the early what, eighth, ninth century, I said, or later than that, they controlled quite a bit of. Excuse me, 1 second, please. What you find when the Arabs finally came into North Africa, okay, remember, you got to remember what happened even before the Arabs came in. What happened? We lost quite a bit of North Africa even before the Arabs came in, because remember who came in prior to the Arabs invading Africa and pushed a lot of us further south. Who came before the Arabs? You had the Romans who conquered North Africa. You follow me now? What you had so now remember
Greeks,
you okay. Kushite came and what, captured back Pianki, and who else was it? Taharka captured it back. After that, that was it. Okay, when the Greeks came in, the Macedonian Greeks, the Ptolemies, the Romans, North Africa was already lost. You had bits and pieces of us there, but for the most part, we lost most of that North Africa. Okay, so a lot of those priests, they went what, further south, went to other places. So it made it easier.
And today, a lot of those people don't want to know that they got that under nefarious means. They got what they got. Most of the whole world, Satan got the whole world under nefarious means by raping, pillaging, killing the animal mind, getting you to be conscious of that aspect of God, of your aspect of God, of nature, the destructional part. Now that everything's in the calm and people are living and they got everything they wanted and they achieved all this and they were able to pass it down to the generations, there's us, on the other hand, that are the generations of those who were conquered and taken over and things were stolen from us that we never have been repaired. But yet they want to start repairing everybody, those very other people within their groups, the Asians, the white Asians, the white Europeans, Jews. Everybody gets repaired over our repair, which our repair is the major repair, because they all had their hands in the damage and the destruction of us as a people. But they fail to want to see that about themselves. We are here for an experience. God is not in human form or any form. It's all of us as a collective that make up that whole. We each possess the power, the will, and the power. And what makes us even more powerful is the conscious awareness that we are here for the experience, coming from afar. And in understanding in that experience and being able to see what it is about truly, that makes us the light of the world, because the others can't see. They refuse to see, or they can't see. They only go to a certain level. Nature has hindered them. That's why they're the destruction of the earth, because their nature is hindered, or the depravity they suffer. So if anybody wants to come up, hit the link. I'll put the link back down here again. Let me see if I can get it down here again. You're welcome to voice your opinions, have a little discussion. And then after that, I'll just close out because I believe that that was it. Let's check and see.
Okay for the Arabs to come in because Rome had already fell. The Turks. Okay, they don't practice. They don't do X, Y, and Z. Couldn't ask them. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing was what? He wanted control. He wanted power. Was it that you wanted to unify Islam? Because remember, you asked the Sangha to do what? Give up your area, give up your land. Mm-hmm. Okay, coming to combine with Morocco. We're good where we at. We cool, mm-hmm. And they were still devout Muslims. Mm-hmm. So what reason did you have to go down there and conquer their land? They won't bother you because remember, they already lost power in Spain.
Everything's based on greed, and when you give your pearls, your greatness, I don't care. It could be the man's sperm, the black man's sperm. He's given his sperm over that can be utilized against him for nefarious reasons. He's given his talents. We're giving our energy over to be utilized for nefarious purposes. If we don't learn today, we're never going to learn. Because the same thing is happening and, over and over again. The same thing is happening over and over again. See, let me play this.
A lot of the Arabs retreated back to what? Their home base. At that time, what? North Africa. Okay? Remember, Felix Du Bois says what? A lot of the Arabs came down into University of San apply for teaching positions.
Right.
At the University of San Corre at Timbuktu, they weren't qualified for. Right. So remember, they retreated back in North Africa. Where else did you have to go after you lost power? Okay? Because you had Arabs who were also in the Iberian Peninsula. It just wasn't us there. Okay? Mm-hmm. We were the Moors, but you also had the Arabs there too. Okay? You had that partnership. But when it went bad in Saud, when they lost it, it went bad. You follow me? Mm-hmm. Because the same person, Bo Abdil, also sent for what? Help in North Africa. When he was fighting Ferdinand and Isabella, and they ignored him and would not send him help. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, their position was, we didn't like you negotiating back and forth. Well, he had no choice. Okay? He was trying to diplomat. He was trying to use diplomacy. He had no choice. But you didn't give him the manpower he needed to what? Defeat Isabella. More than one occasion, he wrote back to North Africa for help. Didn't honor his request. So many of those same Arabs today, they don't have a sentimental attachment to African women. Okay? This thing is about what? Wealth, power,
and control.
Mm-hmm. Okay?
And these same Arabs in our communities today, they don't even hire
power and control
African people. No. And they're still exploiting your daughters.
It's in their DNA. Wealth, power, and control. It's gonna run deep and wide. It's the animal level of thinking and living.
And young girls that go in these stores, they're exploiting them today.
Yeah, well, that has two sides to it because you see a lot of young men going there and
Very
condole with.
about that.
Bella, and they ignored him and would not send him help
Mhm.
because, of course, their position was we didn't like you negotiating back and forth, but he had no choice. Okay, he was trying to diplomat. He was trying to use diplomacy. He had no choice. But you didn't give him the manpower he needed to what defeat Isabella. More than one occasion, he wrote back to North Africa for help. Didn't honor his request.
Mm. Mm.
So many of those same Arabs today, they don't have a sentimental attachment to African women. Okay, this thing is about what? Wealth, power,
And control.
and control.
And we're going to
Mhm.
end it
Okay.
right
And
there.
these same Arabs.
It's about wealth, power, and control, as we can see. But I'm going to end it because I don't see anybody wanting to come up to the panel. I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to play some love music, some good music to get you all in the high spirits today. High aura. Here we go. I wonder if the other one is louder. Let's see if the other one's louder. Or does it start out sound? Maybe it starts out quiet. I love that song. So, with that said, we're gonna go ahead and close out. I have to play my song one more time. I love that song so much. Love times love. Let's see here. Let me go this way. Let me play this one. I always loved George Benson and his guitar as a little girl. I always loved that sound. That one song. Nothing. That's the song. Yeah. Oh, for love. Where's Love Masquerade? Oh, okay, here. Didn't you have an older one? Let me go back. Let's see if we can find that one live. Oh, Benson live. Here we go. Here we go. In this place, in my mind. But the words got in the way. Inside a lonely game we play. part I love. Yeah, you sound just like that guitar. So I close out. Have a, may you have an awesome, bright, sunny day within as well as outside. Peace, family, peace.